The Untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing games is missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, guys, after 44 days in the Bay Area, we're back. We're back, on the original schedule in the friendly, high-tech confines of the True School Sports set. So it's good to be home. It really is good to be home. I had an absolutely glorious time with Yugo Ozaki in training camp. I learned a whole lot about boxing, being around some really good people, really good boxing coaches and things like that. So I got some things beyond just YouTube that I definitely want to try my hand at in boxing going into 2026. And in those 44 days gave me a lot of confidence that I could do those things. So stay tuned for that. But we're here, guys. I want to let everybody know, if you're just tuning in, make sure you smash that like button. Let me know what city, what state, what continent you're watching from. Definitely super chat, all that great stuff. And yeah, man, we got a great show planned for you guys today. Now that I'm back in the, on my original schedule, expect these lives in and around this time every day, between 10 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Pacific, that time, so it's good to be here. But before I get into Jaron Ennis, because I have a lot to say about Jaron Ennis, I got a lot to say about Vergil Ortiz. I got a lot to say about just the aftermath of this whole fight and the state of the 154 division. So we'll talk about all that. But before I get into all that, let me go ahead and take some time to acknowledge the fine folks that came here, that have made their presence felt, and are talking in the comment section. So shout out to everybody here. It's your boy BT, the Untouchable True School Sports Empire. We're here in the home of boxing. But let me see. We got man, Everything by John says we need him against the best. What's next? A lot of things could be next. Truthfully, I think Vergil needs to be next, but Abbas Barrow's in play. We'll see. We'll talk more about that in this live. What's up, man? Vergil, ISIS boots on God. Let's see, he put that on God. So my main man, Matt, serious. I think people are being very dismissive of Vergil. I think it's very disrespectful in the way I've heard people, not just boxing fans and boots fans, but just people in the boxing world who really know this sport to talk about Vergil like that pisses me off. And I ain't got a dog in the race. I'm a fan of both guys. I've given both guys their fair share of praises over the years, and I've definitely given both of them their fair share of criticism. So it's like I don't got no dog in the race, but it's pissing me off. 402 stand up. Shout out to what is that, Nebraska? I think 402 is Nebraska. Lima was my cab driver last week, and listen, I won't disrespect him, but he's not a world class fighter. Hockey, shout out to you. Malaysia, we got Joaquin in the building. We got Tyco TV in the building. Omaha, Nebraska is in the building. Jeffy the Pig is in the building. We got Enrique Luna. He says, Brennan, I'm glad you enjoyed the Bay Area. Listen, I'll probably be back in the Bay Area in about another 3 to 4 months. So I'm looking forward to going back. I had an amazing time, and people are great. Cape Coral, Florida. I came for Eddie to make a Boots versus Lima rematch. Philly versus Angola. Gotta continue. Yeah, we're gonna talk about Philly versus Angola because you guys know on this channel, we prop this up as the new rivalry in boxing, the biggest rivalry in boxing. Because shit, everyone was saying it was gonna be this great fight, and y'all saw what it was. We had fun with it because we had to laugh to prevent ourselves from crying for how bad of a matchup it was. But you guys saw what it was on fight night. We got my main man, the big payback, South Florida's very own, Broward County's finest, Alex Fitzmaurice. Good to see you, champ. So yeah, on that note, guys, we got everybody here. We're alive. We're rocking. We got it's True School After Dark once again. Everybody's favorite boxing program. Let's get to it, man, because we got a couple talking points. We got to run through about roughly 5 or 6. We got to go ahead and run through. So make sure you guys smash that like button. Definitely make all your thoughts in the comments known, and I'll get to them in a timely manner. But our first talking point is this: the Philly versus Angola rivalry is over. The new rivalry in boxing, the biggest rivalry in boxing, it has concluded. And unfortunately for us, Philly versus Angola was shorter than a lot of commercials on TV. It was short. What was it, like 2 minutes? Not a minute and 40 seconds. Like no more than 120 seconds. It was bad. It was bad. How bad of a mismatch this was. But you know what? I want to continue and remain consistent with something that I talk about here on this channel. A lot of times I talk about fighters stepping up to the plate. You guys may hear me use that term a lot. I always talk about guys, fighters and opponents stepping up to the plate to make fights happen. And so if I'm not going to criticize, guys that lose fights that I like for stepping up to the plate, I have to keep that same energy for other guys, even if I don't think much of their abilities. And I will do the same for Usima Lima. Happy trails to Usima Lima, and I hope that now that he's taking this fight, and I'll get to Booty in a second, but now that he's taking this fight, and he's a known name, and he's made some good money for himself, I hope he can reinvest that money back into himself, into his training camps, into his training, and get some better sparring and level up his career. Because I'm not a believer in demeaning a fight. I may have fun with it. I may say exposed. I don't think a loss is a death sentence for a fighter. I had 3 of my own personal friends lose this week from South Florida. Lorenzo Medina, Luis Hernandez, Eric Tudor. They all lost this weekend. I'm not telling them, hey, their career is over. So I'm not going to tell that to Lima, But anyway, let's get to Lima, right? Because after the fight, he went and he took to Twitter or Instagram, I should say. And this was his post. And I'll read it to you guys verbatim, word for word. He stated the following, and I quote, he says, "I'm calmer today. I took time to look at the positives and the glass half full. Yesterday was the day that I realized a dream of being able to step on these stages and have the best fighters watching my work. Unfortunately, it didn't go the way that I wanted it to, but it only gave me more certainty that this is where I want. This is where I want to be, and I had the courage to be. 2 years ago, when I lost my first fight, I was on the doorstep of the top 100. I didn't just live boxing. My family was making efforts so I could live my dream. Today, I should stay in the top 20. I have much more experience, much more network, and much more baggage. And besides that, personal stability. That's a big one. And so nothing can shake me. I'm going to start from zero. I'm going to continue my journey and prove that what happened yesterday was a mishap. I'll be back here more prepared and ready for any adversity. We all will go up together." So there you go. So Usima Lima was looking at it as a glass half full. And I was on the phone with a fighter today, a friend of mine, and I told him, I said, "Look, man, a loss isn't a death sentence." I feel like a lot of times when fighters lose fights, and not just fighters, but people in life, I won't limit it to just fighters, because life itself is a fight. So a lot of times people will suffer a setback in life, and they'll bitch up, and they'll use excuses, and they'll let something that didn't go their way get to them and be the final outcome of their life. And like Lima's not doing that. Lima is sitting here and he's looking at the glass half full. He's already lost before, and this is a guy in Lima who, to his credit, he doesn't come from a boxing hotbed where there's a lot of boxing infrastructure in Portugal. He took some tough fights on the road. He fought undefeated guys. He fought himself into relevancy. And sure, yeah, do I think that there was some help from the powers that be to get him higher in the rankings? Yes. And him winning the IBO title certainly aided that cause. But Lima is here now, and I think he's gonna get another test at some point. So when it comes again, I hope that he performs better than he did in this fight. I would like to see him. If I could give a consultation, an advisory tip, free of charge, once again here on True School Sports, I would like to suggest that Lima maybe fight Callum Walsh one day. Callum Walsh, I know he's with Dana White, and that's TKO Boxing. But Callum Walsh is a guy that is being looked at to be one of the top guys upcoming at 154. I don't think he's that good. I think he kind of sucks, if I'm being honest with you. And I feel like Lima versus him would be a really good fight. I think Lima could do good against Callum Walsh, maybe even beat Callum Walsh. So I would like that fight if I'm just thinking out loud here, but I don't know how realistic that is. But good for him. A loss doesn't define you. He was overmatched, and in comparison to Boots, like, he did not belong in the ring, and that was shown. But I'm glad that he's taking it with the good mentality, and I'll tell you this: Lima is a better man than me. I'm a very competitive guy. I don't know if I would have reacted to this as well as he did, because I don't know if you guys saw it, but and I got it here on the screen. Lima, after he got knocked out with Boots, as you guys can see on the screen, he was in the dressing room, and what did Jaron Ennis give Lima? He gave this man some cheesesteaks. So imagine that. Imagine you train all this time. You're busting your ass, you're sparring, you're doing your road work, you're doing strength and conditioning, you're not eating like the best of food, you're not eating McDonald's, you're not eating burgers, you're not eating all this good food out there in the world, you're not having sex, you're not doing none of that stuff that men and people love to do. And you go there and you get knocked out in like 2 minutes in your biggest fight, and then the guy who knocks you out gives you 2 cheesesteaks. I don't know. I would have taken them cheesesteaks and thrown them back at Jaron Ennis. I would have taken them out the box. I would have made sure I had the hottest part of the damn cheesesteak there. I would have chucked it back at him if I was in his shoes. But that's why, it's probably good that he didn't do that. He took it as a good sport. But he's a better man than me. So listen, the rivalry is over. Philly versus Angola is no more. And we will see what is to come of Usima Lima in the future, because what did the old coach say, Dennis Green, back in the day when the Cardinals lost to the Bears on Monday Night Football? He said, the Chicago Bears, we thought they were. That's what Lima was. He was who we thought he was. He was a guy that was in the rankings, yes, and maybe he is better than what he showed yesterday. And really, it's more about how great Boots is. But he was the guy that the majority of the rational boxing world highly believed did not deserve to be in the ring with Jaron Ennis. And that was proven very, very quickly and swiftly. So listen, best of luck to him in the future. But happy trails to him, and enjoy the Philly cheesesteaks. Now, look, I saw this tweet, and I wanted to go ahead and really sound off on this, because shout out to Adam's Boxing Show on Twitter. I do see his tweets a lot, and I think he does have some good tweets. But he said right here, and I quote, "At one point in time, and this is before social media, you see if you trash talked a fighter in your weight class, you would get held to fighting that dude. Now you can talk trash online to a guy and then go fight an unknown fighter who doesn't speak any English." And I think this is in reference to Jaron Ennis, which, Lima does speak English, but you get the gist. An unknown, bottom of the barrel, cannon fighter opponent. And that's happening a lot. That seems to be happening a whole lot right now in boxing amongst a lot of the top guys. So look, hopefully Jaron Ennis can get these big fights. I'm tired of sitting here and questioning if what I believed about him, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. I'm tired of questioning if what I believe about him is the truth. And what I believed about my initial belief about Jaron Ennis when I started covering him on this channel back in 2020, I think 2019 as well, was that I thought that he was a future pound-for-pound star. Now, do I think he can be a future pound-for-pound star? Yes, but he's 28. He's 35-0, 31 knockouts, and the time is now. The time is now. I don't want to hear about Abbas Barobo. I'll get into that later. Now, before I get into Jaron Ennis, because I do want to say some positive things about Jaron Ennis. This tweet right here, my man Uncle Pete says, "What are you guys excited for Boots? Why aren't you guys excited for Boots like you were for Brian Norman Jr. when he stopped Jin Sasaki? Lima was the legitimate top 10 opponent." Now, I'm going to push back on that. So to answer the first part, why are people like myself and many boxing fans not as excited about Boots' knockout of Lima as were Brian Norman Jr.'s versus knockout of Jin Sasaki? Number one, Jin Sasaki got nailed to the canvas. Did you forget? The dude, we thought he was dead for about a minute. It was a more vicious knockout, right? Then it wasn't just the knockout itself; it was the celebrations. You had Norman going around the ring, bowing. He went to Japan, his hometown, knocked him the fuck out, and had him carried off on a stretcher, and then hit one of the coldest celebrations immediately after the knockout. It's one of the greatest knockouts I've ever seen in my entire life as a boxing fan. Sasaki Lima, you could argue that Sasaki and Lima is the same thing. You could even argue that Lima is better than Sasaki or Sasaki is better than Lima. There's arguments you can make on both sides, but either way, they're both overmatched. The difference is that Jin Sasaki showed a lot more resistance with Norman, I should say, than Lima did with Boots. Lima literally folded at the first time he got clipped. Jin was crazy. Jin was literally asking to get hit more after he had already been knocked down 1 or 2 times in the first round, and he threw shots as hard as he possibly could before he got knocked the fuck out there in at the Ariake Arena. Not the Ariake Arena. At the Ota City General Gymnasium, right? So there was more resistance, and it was a more devastating outcome. So that's why I think people are more excited. But as far as Lima being a legitimate top 10 opponent, I really don't know where everybody's getting this from. Now, I know he was ranked. I understand rankings. But, I mean, you guys really think let's go to 154. Is Lima really a top 10 54-pounder? You got, I'm not no big Josh Kelly fan, but I wouldn't put him above Josh Kelly. I wouldn't put him above, let me see. Let me go to the 4 rankings. Let me see. I wouldn't put Lima above, obviously, Jaron Ennis is a guy. So we'll count Jaron because He's not better than Jaron. He's not better than Kelly. He's not better than Vergil. He's not better than Lubin. He's not better than Boachuk. He's not better than Madrimov. And you guys know I don't even like Madrimov. He's not better than Santillan. He's not better than Tim Zhu. He's not better than Brandon Adams. And I don't think he's better than Conwell or Jorge Sebastian Perez. You know, I don't think he's better than Andre Katsourakis. And the list goes on and on and on. I've been very adamant about this with Lima. I think Lima, and again, I give him his respect for stepping up to the plate and making the fight happen and trying to go for the gusto. I can't fault him for that. But in terms of his ability and where he stands in this weight class, I think at his 150% best, he's maybe the 20th best 154 pounder. I don't think he's a top 15 154 pounder, let alone a top 10 154 pounder. But that's just me. What do I know? I'm just a guy on the YouTube channel with, you know, voicing his little opinion. That's what I think. But anyway, yeah, no, Brian Norman Jr.'s knockout was more sensational. But again, they're both great knockouts. They both did their thing. What do you guys think? What does the fine folks in the boxing world say? Are you guys sad that Philly versus Angola is over? We had such a great time in the buildup of the biggest rivalry in boxing. What do you guys think? Let me see. Let me go here. Let me go. Let me run through these comments, man, because I know y'all got a lot to say. And I see a couple of super chats. Let me acknowledge the super chats. Shout out to my guy, Ohio Runs Boxing. Y'all want the best in Ohio? If y'all want to know about Ohio boxing, fight from anything from the fighters to the promoters to the managers to all the ins and outs of what goes on in the Buckeye State when it comes to boxing, you go mess with my man Marcus Snow. He's gonna get you right. You're gonna learn about fighters you never heard of and you would never hear about if it wasn't for him. So shout out to him. He's doing this thing, and I appreciate all the support over the years, Marcus. Thank you, and I hope you're well. Matt Borgeson with the $2 super chat says David Haney lost and people act like he's done too. Yeah, like he's not done. I mean, I don't think he's gonna beat Brian Norman, but shit, he has a chance to really put himself back on the map with that win. A loss does not define a fighter. You understand? A loss does not define a fighter. All our favorite fighters throughout the course of history, unless we're talking about Crawford or Mayweather or Rocky Marciano or Joe Calzaghe, outside of like a very minuscule amount of fighters, damn near every fighter in boxing had to go through some adversity and prove that they could overcome a loss. Adversity, failures, setbacks in life and in the boxing ring, that's what lets you know if you're a man. That's what lets you know if you're going to really, really be someone that is worth anything in this world and in life. So, you know, I'm not going to write off Lima. I just don't think he deserved at this stage of his career to be in the ring with Jaron Ennis. So I'll leave it at that. Matt also says that he thinks that Lima would be a great TKO fighter. Possibly. I mean, possibly. I think there's a lot of guys in boxing that I think would probably fit the TKO mold very, very well. He's one of them. Let's see. Let's see how his career evolves. Maybe I know that TKO boxing is trying to sign a lot of fighters. I think they said they want to sign about 400 or 350 fighters. And I know that they've been in contact with a lot of fighters. I know in my own, like I personally know about 7 fighters that have been contacted by them and have already signed to them, but you know they haven't announced any cards. So those fighters that I do know haven't even gotten fights on TKO because TKO doesn't have anything lined up as of yet. Maybe they will early on in 2026, but nothing's been announced as of yet. So we'll see. Maybe you're right. Maybe he is a guy that goes on to have great things and does great things. We'll see. Let me see. He's got a long way to go. Listen, I wish him all the best. I can't hate anybody who's pursuing their career in boxing. This is a hard game to make it in. I just want to see that. I want to see the sport be all it can be, and I want to see Jaron Ennis be all he can be. I'm a fan. You know, I've always been a big Jaron Ennis fan. I've been frustrated over the last couple of years because I feel like they don't need to baby him. He's good enough to just fight any of these guys, and they got like this protection plan on him. I don't get it. You know. Bro, could I get on BT? You're delusional if you think Vergil's any match. Oh, Vergil. Oh, you know what? Let's just fast forward to that because I know that's what y'all want. I know that's what y'all want. Y'all want to hear me talk about Vergil Ortiz versus Jaron Ennis. Now look, I'll be very honest because I'm always very honest. I've gone back and forth on this fight. There's been many times where I thought that Jaron Ennis would beat the brakes off Vergil, and there's been times where I think Vergil will beat Boots. I think it's a big fight because it's a great fight. You know, when you talk about Jaron Ennis' style, you're talking about, you know, peak athleticism with, you know, elite fundamentals, and which is great because there's a lot of fighters that have those things, but he's also a very vicious fighter in his own right. When Boots has you hurt, most of the time, you know, you start the bus and you go home because he's going to get you out of there. You know, 31. I don't give a damn who you fight. If you have 35 professional fights and you get 31 of them guys out of there, that means you know a thing or two about how to finish an opponent. And when we talk about Vergil Ortiz, he's not as athletic as Boots, but he's got a lot of great qualities. So I think Vergil Ortiz has one of the best power jabs in the business. We've seen Vergil Ortiz go through adversity in the Boachuk fight. And I thought he lost the Boachuk fight. I really do think he lost the Boachuk fight. But even after he got dropped a couple of times, he got up and he bit down on his gumshoe and he fought even harder. So even in the moments of adversity in his career, whether you thought he lost to Boachuk or beat Boachuk, he's responded very, very well. I think it's foolish. I think it's foolish how people are talking about him. And I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. I don't want to just tell y'all. I want to show y'all because I'm a man who likes to speak in very big specifics. I don't like to speak in generalities or anything like that. I want to speak to y'all specifically. Now, look, it hasn't always. Before I even get into what was said about Vergil, to all the Boots fans out there, because I know a couple people from Philly are gonna pop in here and start saying that I'm talking crazy about Boots and that I'm a hater. So look, let me show you guys evidence from this is a tweet from 2019, right? From June of 2022. I had just went to the Artur Beterbiev Joe Smith fight. I took my dad to New York City for Father's Day. Went out there, had a great weekend, and I said that Artur Beterbiev is one of the best fighters I've ever seen live. Him, Roman Gonzalez, Terrence Crawford, and who's this fourth name right here? I said Jaron Ennis are on their own planet as far as the guys who are active that I've seen fight live. So I was saying back in 2022 that I think that Jaron Ennis I put him up there with Crawford, Roman Gonzalez, and Beterbiev as one of the top 4 greatest fighters I've ever seen fight live. Because I saw Jaron Ennis fight live when he fought Delorme. I was there. I was one of the very few people that were there because it was a very empty arena at the Mandalay Bay that night. But I was there, and I loved what I saw from Boots. And I still stand on that. Like 3 years later, I stand on that. And I've seen Vergil fight live too. I still think in terms of entertainment value and from what I've seen, and I've seen Canelo fight live. I've seen, you know, Deontay Wilder fight live. I've seen you know, I said Crawford, Roman Gonzalez, Jaron Ennis. I've seen Inoue fight live multiple times now. I hadn't back then, so I would put Inoue there too. I've seen Tank. I've seen Ryan. I've seen Canelo. Pretty much the majority of boxing outside of, let's say, like Usyk, you know, I've seen fight live. I've seen Bivol fight live. So I put him up there as one of the best fighters I've ever seen fight live. And if y'all want to clip this, because I know people are they're going to watch this live, and they're going to watch other things I say about Jaron Ennis, and they're going to say I'm a hater. But how am I a hater if I'm telling you guys that he's one of the best fighters I've ever seen fight live? So let's get this established. Anything that I say that's not favorable to Jaron Ennis is because I hold Jaron Ennis to a high standard. Look at the class I'm putting him in. Look at the class I was putting Jaron Ennis in back in 2022. I was saying that he's up there with the best fighters I've ever seen fight live. I put him up there with Roman Gonzalez, who's my favorite fighter of all time. I put him up there with Crawford. I put him up there with Beterbiev. And you can include Inoue in there as well. He's in that, as far as from what I've seen live, he's one of the best I've seen fight live, right? So if I'm putting him in that class, with great power and with great praise also comes great responsibility. You got to prove that, and you got to make me continue to believe what I believed in 2022. And since that time, I mean, Jaron Ennis has been kind of like, you know, 50-50. Like he hasn't really been fighting them guys to really make me as confident as I was in that 3 years ago. I still believe it, but not like I used to. So he needs to fight Vergil Ortiz, and I think it's foolish for people to disrespect Vergil Ortiz because look at this right here, right? I was on Twitter, right? And respect and shout out to Stephen Bretman Edwards, a great boxing trainer, great boxing mind, astute man of the game. I can't hate. He's trained world champions like Julian Williams and Caleb Plant, and he's been a staple in the Philadelphia boxing scene. The man has skin in the game. Anybody in the boxing world like who's trained fighters, managed fighters, promoted fighters, anything to that degree, fighters themselves. I'm not going to ever I'm going to give them their flowers. Even if I don't like them, which I do like Breadman. I want to make that clear. But even if I didn't like Breadman or anybody else, I would still give them their flowers because, like I said, this game is tough. This game is arduous. It's a hard game a hard sport, not a game. It's a hard sport to make a living in, whether you're a fighter, manager, trainer, promoter, any department of boxing that you find yourself involved in. It is hard, but it's equally rewarding if you can do that, right? But I disagree with this. Respectfully, I disagree with this because here's what he said right here. He said, and I quote, Vergil Ortiz seems like a very nice young man. So there you go. He's starting off with a qualifying statement. He seems like a very nice young man and an excellent fighter, which he is. But if he fights Jaron Ennis next, he's most likely in over his head. The public thinks it's 50-50. If you know what you're looking at, it's 80-20 in Boots' favor. It sucks. It won't be for a title, though. Now, look, I don't agree with that. I don't think it's a 80-20 fight. The 80-20 fight was this fight. Like this weekend's fight was like an 80-20 fight or 90-10 fight or 95-5 fight. This fight's more of like, I'm going to say like 55-45. It's closer to 50-50 than it is 80-20. I'll just put it like that. When I break the fight down, let's break Jaron Ennis down, right? Because what is Jaron Ennis as a fighter? Jaron Ennis is an incredible athlete, but Jaron Ennis is also a guy who he needs to plan to be his best. He needs to plant his feet and he needs to have fun. He needs to plant his feet, get out 4 or 5 punches on you. He needs you to overextend, overshoot, so he can pivot around you, counter, just be in control. He's a guy that really relies on his God-given reflexes and athletic ability. Does he have some really good fundamentals? Yeah. Does he have elite speed? Of course. Is he a fantastic switch hitter? Yes. But one thing that also gets Jaron Ennis in trouble is that, he has a lot of defensive lapses, and a lot of times if you watch his fights, whether it be even in the Lima fight, he falls over his front foot a lot. He falls over his front foot, and we've seen in the Karen fights, and I know everybody in Philly and the Boots fan base, they don't like when I bring up the Karen fights, but it's there to be judged. Like when someone move on him and counter punch him and things of that nature, he has a hard time. Now, Vergil Ortiz is not a Karen type of fighter. He's not gonna get on his toes like Karen. But what Vergil Ortiz does have, which I think people are really underestimating, and it's really despicable hearing astute boxing minds completely forget that Vergil Ortiz has one of the best jabs in the entire sport. Jaron Ennis has never fought anybody with an elite jab like Vergil Ortiz. One is you guys tell me, apart from Karen, who, by the way, Karen is a good fighter, but Karen had no firepower. So Boots, being as big as he is and as slick as he is, and having all the offensive firepower he has, he could sit there right in the pocket and get hit with stuff and never have to worry. Where Vergil, you're gonna have to worry. There's some heat behind those punches, and you're talking about elite fundamentals with elite work rate. But he's never fought anything like that. And don't tell me Sergey Lipinets and these kind of guys where he was like 4 or 5 times bigger than those guys. Go back and watch those fights. He was 4 or 5 times bigger than all them guys. I think it's a really good fight. I think Jaron Ennis in that fight is gonna have a much more difficult time using his athletic ability than, let's say, when he fights these other guys. He's not Terrence Crawford. People like to talk like he's Terrence Crawford. He's not the counter puncher Terrence Crawford is. And on top of that, he doesn't have the footwork of a guy like Terrence Crawford. He needs to have his feet planted so he can get off on you. And he's never really fought. Like, go look at his career. He was managed by Cameron Duncan. So Boots and Brian Norman Jr. were both managed by the same person. That same person was Cameron Duncan, right? And Cameron Duncan, God rest his soul, he was one of the best boxing managers of all time. He's probably going to go to the Hall of Fame one day if he's not there already. I don't think he is, but I would fully anticipate that Cameron Duncan at some point in time, within these next 20 years, will go in the Hall of Fame, because look at all the great fighters he produced over the years in terms of how he got to their careers. And Boots, and Norman started off the same guy, but then Cameron Duncan wound up dying, and Norman actually fought some guys who could punch. He fought a guy like Santillan. Even if y'all want to down him, Sasaki can punch as well, even though he's a bit undersized at 47. Boots hasn't really fought no punchers. Vergil Ortiz will really be like the first top puncher he's fought. And there's been a lot of comparisons to Stanley Giannis. I mean, the Boots fans and a lot of people like to compare him to Stanley Giannis. Guys, Stanionis is overrated. I'm sorry to be like the bearer of bad news. Stanionis is overrated. The fight shouldn't have never been for the Ring Magazine title. And people are saying, well, Vergil and Stanionis, they fight the same. No, they don't. They both do fight in a high guard. Yes, they both are aggressive fighters. That is true. But there's a lot more layers to work out with Vergil Ortiz. Go watch their fights. Vergil Ortiz's jab comes from a much more educated place. He's got a better power jab than Stanionis. If you watch Vergil Ortiz when he fought Madrimov in the middle rounds of that fight, he started foot fanning him more. That's how he was able to close the gap on Madrimov, right? We all know Madrimov has that ugly, herky jerk style, and that's kind of why I don't like Madrimov, because I hate watching him fight. I hate his style. But he has a hard style that is difficult to work out. And if you go back and you watch that fight, that was a fight where in those middle rounds, after Vergil kind of saw that herky-jerky style, he started to foot fanning him a bit more. He started to change pace of his jab, and then he started to get on that front foot and slowly but surely back him up, right? And so those are like the subtle things, the foot feints, the way he cuts the ring off. Those are things that Jaron Ennis has never had to deal with. What's going to happen when he gets put on the back foot? Does he have an answer for that? I don't know, but I want to see it. It's a great fight. I don't have a problem if you think Boots can win, but I might pick Boots myself. I don't know what I'm going to do yet as far as that fight. It's a great fight. I see it as close to a 50-50 fight, if not a 50-50 fight. But to sit here and just demean Vergil Ortiz, and people will say like, oh, well, he got dropped by Boachuk, but Boachuk is a top fighter, right? And it's not about getting dropped. It's how you respond when you get dropped. He got dropped, and he fought harder. There were some rounds where Boachuk would land a flash knockdown where you could literally argue that from after the knockdown for the rest of that round, Vergil won that round, right? Even if he lost on the scorecard, I'm talking about he won the rest of the moments of that round. So you look at how he's responded to adversity when he's been in there with top 154 pounders and guys that are still in and around the top of the division. Madrimov is still a top 10 guy. Boachuk, even after losing to Brandon Adams, is still a top 10 guy, right? So I think it's a great fight. I really do. And I'm hoping it could be next. I don't want to hear about Boots fighting Abbas Barrow because he's the mandatory. No, fuck that. I don't want to hear about that. With in Vergil's case, like, because I've gone on his case too about the Xander Zayas fight. Nah, at this point, to hell with that as well, because Golden Boy Promotions was playing games. We don't want to see the Xander fight right now. Right now, when you talk about what matters in boxing, and what matters in boxing is not always belts. It's not always the accomplishments. It's not always those things. What matters in boxing right now, when you talk about this 154-pound division, is Vergil Ortiz versus Jaron Ennis. Jaron Ennis versus Vergil Ortiz. The Philadelphia Eagles versus Dallas Cowboys of our sport right now, It's a really significant fight, and it's a very significant fight for boxing in this country. And boxing in this country, it needs a freaking shot in the arm, because you're talking about, and I'll get into this later on, because I'm going to get your comments in a second, but like boxing needs a shot in the arm in the worst way, because you got everything being outsourced to Saudi, everything being outsourced to Turkey, and we're not really getting the big, meaningful fight nights in America anymore. We're not getting those big, meaningful rivalry fights in America anymore. It's disgraceful. So this fight needs to happen next. It needs to happen in America, preferably. I mean, I would like it to happen like in Las Vegas. I think Las Vegas would be a good location for this fight, because I don't think they're gonna go to New York, right? I think you can't expect this fight to be in Philadelphia, and you can't expect it to be in Dallas where Vergil is from. So the closest thing I can think of to neutral grounds, and it probably won't be neutral because a lot of the Mexican Americans are going to come out for Vergil, but we'll see how far the people from Philly will travel. Maybe Boots will be a superstar in American boxing that we haven't seen in a while. But I would like to see this fight happen in Vegas. Maybe something like you see what venue? What venue could Boots and Vergil happen in Vegas? Because you got MGM, but I don't think it's an MGM Grand type fight. It's not that kind of fight. It's not a T-Mobile Arena kind of fight, in my opinion. Maybe like Mandalay Bay. I feel like Mandalay Bay, Jaron Ennis, Vergil Ortiz, you're talking about roughly, what is that, like 8 to 10,000 tickets? I think that's very doable. I think, you get the mouthpiece of Eddie here and you get Oscar De La Hoya, but I think it's a great event. So it's a great fight. I go back and forth on it all the time. I want to see it happen, but I think it's foolish. I'm very disappointed in the boxing world for overreacting to Jaron Ennis getting off on Lima. Like, I understand it's fun to watch, and it's very, very eye-catching. I get it, but like, He fought Lima, guys. He fought like, and I'm trying to not be disrespectful. I'm trying to not be disrespectful, but like if I could just be blunt, guys. When we talk about Usima Lima in the grand scheme of the world level, when you compare him to guys like Jaron Ennis and Vergil Ortiz, he's a can. He's a straight can. Like he's not on that level. And then people will be like, oh well, BT, he only lost to Aaron McKenna, but y'all didn't even care about who Aaron McKenna was. Aaron McKenna. Like I hear people all the time shit on British boxing. Oh, these British fighters suck. These UK fighters aren't any good. But then when it comes talking about boots, now all of a sudden, now you want to hype up the British fighters. Like I don't get it, man. What do y'all really think about these British fighters? Lima is a high-level European fighter. That's what he is. All right, we didn't learn anything new about Jaron Ennis from watching this fight. We already knew he was athletic. We already knew he was fast. We already knew he was a creative offensive fighter. We already knew he could punch. We already knew he could finish. We learned nothing about him, right? So it was a showcase fight. He got a showcase fight. And before I go to the comments, because I'm sure I got a couple comments, I haven't read them yet, but I'm sure people are going to say, well, BT, you're doing all this pushback for Vergil or for Jaron Ennis fighting Lima. Where was the pushback when he fought Lawson? Because that's what a lot of people in boxing like to do. They don't like to actually answer the questions when it's asked about their fighter. They like to do the what about isms. What about him? What about this? They want to deflect. Okay. What about Vergil Ortiz? When he fought Lawson, he had basically had the whole rhabdomyosis thing where he basically, was overtraining. Some people say he was on steroids. Who knows? But either way, he was out of the ring for a while. He had medical problems. He fought Vergil Lawson. And do you know what I did when he fought Vergil Lawson? The videos are here on the channel. I criticized the fight because Vergil Lawson was never a great fighter in his prime. Vergil Lawson's prime was about 2015 when PBC first started, and he was like a Lima of 147 back 10 years ago. Fringe guy, got himself in the rankings, but he wasn't winning anything either. And Vergil fought the corpse of that. This is a guy that had brain issues, had some problems with a brain scan. I think he had brain aneurysm or something like that. He had problems with his brain, and that all came out after the fight. So it was a cherry pick. It was dog shit. I called it as such when it happened. So I'm not one of these people that is just hating on Boots and trying to put him down because I hate. No, Vergil fought a can. And I acknowledge that when it happened. But the reason he fought a can was because the boy had medical problems. He had medical problems, and it is what it is. So Boots got his tune-up. Vergil got his tune-up. I think Jaron Ennis is now good enough to fight whoever, whether it's Vergil, whether it's Bakram, whether it's Xander, whoever. Abbas Bro is a good fighter, because he's basically Abbas Bro's mandatory now. And that is a possibility. Like I prepared myself for the possibility of him potentially fighting Abbas Bro next. And would I be shocked? No. But do I want to see that next? No. I don't think Vergil Ortiz or Boots needs to be marinated anymore. The fight is the biggest fight in the division right now without a title. So what is a world title gonna do? I mean, the winner of this fight of them two becomes a superstar, right, in the sport, or at least a star. They become a star in the sport. They ascend to a new level, right? And then that's actually better for the division because now a guy like Abbas Barrow, now he's getting more out of fighting a guy like Vergil or Boots. Xander Zayas will become a bigger fight. And it's just better for the division. So these guys have shown and proven enough. We know these guys are creme de la creme, top shelf fighters. Let's get to the smoke and let's see what's what. Like I don't got a dog in the race. If Boots beats the shit out of Vergil, great. I'll be happy for him. And if Vergil beats the shit out of Boots, I'll be happy as well. I just want to see the fight. That's it. That's all I'm trying to say. Let me see. My man said Luba can very lightly upset the apple cart. He can. I don't think he will. I really don't think he will. Like Erickson was a good fighter, and I respect him for stepping up to the plate throughout the years and giving us great fights. But like the record's there to be judged. Every time Lubina stepped up, he lost. And in boxing, you either find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Some guys find a way to win. Some guys find a way to lose. He's a guy that throughout the duration of his career, when it's mattered, he's found a way to lose. So the good thing is he's got a chance to change that narrative against Vergil Ortiz I don't think he will. I think Vergil Ortiz will beat him. And I'll tell you this, if Vergil Ortiz doesn't beat Eric Salubin, I'm going to be very disappointed in Vergil Ortiz because Vergil Ortiz is a guy, much like Jaron Ennis, that I have a high opinion of. I once said on a video back in August of 2024, I said that I think Vergil Ortiz is so good that I think that he will one day be the kind of fighter that will revive the middleweight division. That's what I said about him. So if he loses to Lubin, I'm gonna have to really rethink what I thought back then. But yeah, I can promise you, Boots versus Ortiz is not next. I already know, BT. So we will see. We will see. We'll see what happens. 1,000% we'll see. I'm already kind of like mentally preparing myself for Abbas Barrow. You know, straight up. But I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm glad to have an East Coast fighter that I can support in Jaron, and especially since he's across the bridge from New Jersey. We only have Shakur in my state. Oh, well, I mean, there's other good fighters too. They're just not getting the push right now. You know, you got Ian Green from New Jersey. You guys will be hearing about Ian Green real soon. One of the top contenders in the middleweight division. I think he'll be fighting for a world title in the next 18 to 24 months at middleweight. Once all this Johnny Beck and Lara and Crawford stuff clears, I think I'll wind up getting a title shot for a vacant title in about 18 to 24 months. But yeah, East Coast boxing isn't what it used to be, so I fully get it, and I'm happy. Listen. I'm happy that Philadelphia has someone to get behind. Philadelphia is a great fight town with a lot of great boxing fans, and they deserve someone to get behind like Jaron Ennis. So I hope Philadelphia gets behind Jaron Ennis. I hope the whole Texas gets behind Jaron Ennis, and I hope this fight can be all it can be for American boxing because we need it to be all it can be for American boxing. Where was all this venom when Vergil Ortiz fought his first cherry at 154? It was right here on True School Sports. It was right here on True School Sports. I don't want to listen. That's why I already addressed it. I already knew I was gonna get comments like this. That's why I addressed it earlier. I made two videos talking about how ridiculously terrible that fight was because Lawson literally had, I think it was like a brain aneurysm or something like that, and that all came out after the fight. But Lawson was an Usima Lima caliber fighter 10 years ago in his prime, and Vergil fought the corpse of that. So he got it too. Boots definitely has an elite jab himself. Yeah, they're both elite, man. I think that's why I'm excited about the fight because I feel like, you know what? Boots got an elite jab. Vergil has an elite jab. Who's gonna gain this? Who's gonna gain ground first? You know, when Vergil switches to southpaw, can Vergil find a home for the straight right hand? Will Boots be able to get around the foot feints and get the angles on Vergil Ortiz? Like stylistically, when you really break that fight down, it's a damn good fight. Why do you discredit Boots? Ain't you a spokesman for small-time boxers who deserve all respect? I'm a spokesman for the sport of boxing, and I gave Lima his respect. But I'm not speaking about Lima. I'm speaking about Boots. I'm speaking about Boots because, again, hold on. Let me pull it up for you guys again. Hold on. Let me see if I have it. Let me see if I have it right here. I don't know if I got it in front of me, but I showed you guys earlier. Let me see. All right, I won't look for it now because I lost it. But I called in 2022. I called Jaron Ennis one of the top 5 greatest fighters I've ever seen fight live. So I have a high opinion of you. And when I have a high opinion of fighters, when I have an insanely high opinion of fighters, I hold them to that, whether I like them or not. And it be some dudes that like I really, really like, and so I'm not discrediting him. The matchup discredits itself. I don't have to discredit it. The matchup discredits itself. Eddie Hearn was trying to get Usima Lima to fight Jaleel Hackett, but Eddie Hearn himself said that Usima Lima does nothing for the career of Jaleel Hackett, and Jaleel Hackett is like 7 levels below Boots. So if Jaleel Hackett is like 5 or 7 levels below Jaron Ennis, and Lima doesn't do anything for Hackett, how can Lima do anything for Boots? I mean, it's not discrediting. I don't have to discredit it. The matchup discredits itself. If I go on the side of the road and I see some bird shit, I call it bird shit. I don't say, hey, it's vanilla ice cream. Like, no, we don't do that. I've seen Vergil adjust. I need to see Boots adjust. Exactly. The Karen fight, again, I'm going to keep bringing up the Karen fight because that was a red flag. He won. I would say he won, but and that's all that matters at the end of the day is getting the W. But Karen is not Vergil Ortiz. He's going to have more things to work out with Vergil Ortiz. And I feel like Boots not making a statement over the course of 24 rounds is a red flag. But people don't like me saying that. If Boots beats Vergil, I don't even think he'll get respect. People always say that Vergil never won a world title. The goalpost always gets moved. That's not true. That might be true in the case of a lot of people, but I'll tell you right now, if Jaron Ennis goes in there and he does what everybody's saying he's going to do to Vergil, like let's just say Jaron Ennis goes in there and he treats him just like Lima or stops him in like 6, 7, 8 rounds, something like that, and outclasses him. I'm going to be the first one to come on here and be like, you know what? Yo, put this. I will tell you right now, if Jaron Ennis fights, and clip this, feel free to clip this too, Boots fans. If he stops Vergil Ortiz when they fight, he automatically deserves to be in the top, like 8 pound for pound. I don't give a fuck who's on the list. If he stops Vergil Ortiz, put him top 8 pound for pound off rip, because that's the kind of Did you not hear Boots call out Bames? Who's Bames? Names. Oh, names. Yeah, but I mean, he's done that before. I mean, like it's not about calling out names. Plenty of guys call out names. I want to see paperwork get passed. I want Eddie Hearn. I want Oscar De La Hoya. And if not Eddie Hearn, Oscar De La Hoya, okay. Eddie Hearn and Kathy Duva. If not Eddie Hearn and Kathy Duva with Bakram, then Eddie Hearn and Peter Kahn and Top Rank, whoever. Like, I want to see some paperwork get passed. I'm not into the whole, like, oh, he called him out. A lot of guys call each other out. Vergil Ortiz not having a world title is an indictment on Golden Boy, in my opinion. How do you fight Boachuk and Madrimov but don't have a title shot? There are 4 champions. It's because, like, Madrimov, again, I don't want to put down Madrimov, but Madrimov, he should have just fought Xander. I feel like he would have got more beating Xander. Like, if he would have beat Xander, he probably would have fought for a world title next. But he beat Madrimov, and he became, the WBC interim champion or whatever it was, and nothing's happened in his career. So I think, yeah, it's weird. It's just weird. It's weird how they booed him in his career. Because, again, a guy like Vergil, a guy like Boots, these guys are good enough on their own. Like, they're good enough on their own. They don't need to be baby like they could have both been champions already, but, they want these guys to be, stars. So it is what it is. Hot take, but Terrell Goucher is a better fight than Lima. I think so too. And I'm not even like a Goucher guy, but he's an Olympian. He dropped Tim Tszyu. He gave Lubin, not a great fight, but a difficult fight. So yeah. What am I supposed to do? Osaka versus Angola is over. It's over, man. It's unfortunate. I don't know. How are we deflecting beholding you to your own judgment and metrics? That's you deflecting accountability. Nah, I'm the most accountable channel on YouTube. What are you talking about? What metrics are you talking about? No, you're deflecting because that's anytime somebody brings up Lima, the first thing I hear from every Boots fan is, well, what about Vergil? What about Vergil? Yeah, what about him? He fought Lawson, who was trash. It had brain issues. We gave him his criticism here. Like these guys ain't my friends. Like, they don't pay my bills. Like I don't get nothing out of defending Vergil or Boots. Like, there's no reason for me to, I don't have a dog in the race. I'm just telling y'all what it is. Y'all don't want to hear it. What I learned about him is that he looked healthier before and after the fight on 54. He had more energy. Even in his post-fight, he seemed more lucid. That's fair enough. I'll give him that much. And that's good for boxing. I feel like a more energized, stronger Jaron Ennis will lead to better performances, and that's good because if he is to lose to anybody, then I will like the fighter that beats him to get all the credit in the world, and I would like him to continue to do his best. The fight I really wanted to see was him versus Brian Norman Jr. Honestly, like, even as good of a fight as him and Vergil will be, I kind of checked out of him and Vergil. Once Brian Norman started to emerge, and you got the whole back and forth with Norman Sr. and Bozy and all these kind of guys, that became the fight for me. I wanted to see that fight. So I'm still pissed we didn't get that fight. But good for him. He's in a weight class now. They were saying that he was depleting himself to 147. So fair enough. We'll take him at his word. I'm glad we get the best things going forward for Boots. Let me see. What up, champ? What up? Let me see. Let me go to these comments. Keep the Vergil excuses coming. I don't give a fuck about Vergil. I'm just telling you what it was. I'm telling you why. I'm telling you the circumstances. Boots literally fought Stanionis for 6 rounds. Beat the shit out of him. He wasn't going through nothing. Well, I won't. You know what? Let me not say that. He was going through a very difficult weight cut, and he was depleting himself to get to the weight. So he went through some things in camp. Every fighter goes through things in camp. But what I'm saying is, like, he didn't almost die. I'm actually not a fan of Vergil Ennis' coaching. I think Vergil's a good coach. A lot of people try to down Vergil Ennis and say that Vergil's not a good coach. Look, Vergil, a lot of people were saying Vergil. I remember when Stephen Fulton fought Carlos Castro, right? Because Vergil has known Stephen Fulton for many years. Vergil and Boots are friends. They grew up in the Philadelphia boxing together. And I remember vividly when Fulton got dropped by Carlos Castro, a lot of people were saying that Vergil Ennis wasn't a good trainer for Stephen Fulton, right? And a lot of people picked against Stephen Fulton in the Brandon Figueroa rematch, and he had one of his best career performances against Brandon Figueroa in that rematch. So Vergil Ennis is a fantastic coach. He's produced a couple world champions, and he proved it while he was coaching Stephen Fulton. And mind you, a lot of people could say, well, BT, that's Stephen Fulton. Stephen Fulton's a top 5. They can have this revisionist history now. But mind you, he took over training Stephen Fulton when Stephen Fulton had just got knocked out by Inoue. So, a lot of times with fighters, mentally, they're not in the right space. And I just, I don't think it's fair to say that he's not a good coach. A lot of people like to say that, and I think that's not true. He forces an identity on fighters who can't SWAT. Fair enough. Listen, I can see the criticisms of why you don't like Vergil Ennis as a coach. I'm just telling you what I think. Now, yeah, like Fulton is not a puncher, but he's fighting a lot of times with the mentality of a puncher. But you know what? I think in the case of a Figueroa fight and even Castro, he kind of needed to be that. Could that get him in trouble in the future? Potentially. But it didn't get him in trouble in these 2 fights they had together. And ultimately, Matt, boxing is a results-based business. We can all have our opinions, but at the end of the day, what happens in that ring will tell the truth. And, he got the job done. He removed defensive attributes from Andy Cruz. That's an interesting one because Andy Cruz, I think, the learning curve. And I'm gonna get to Boots in a second. I'm gonna get back to Boots in a second, guys, because I still got what do I got? I think 3 more talking points before I stop talking about Boots. But as far as Andy Cruz was a top creme de la creme amateur fighter. We know the gold medals, all those credentials. So I think he's trying to instill professional habits in Andy Cruz. And I think, when you have a guy who's as seasoned as he was in the amateurs, it's difficult to get him to fully adapt to fighting the pro style. And so I think that's what he's doing. I think it's been very, very good so far. I'm not sure if we'll get his world title shot at Raymond Murataya, but I think he's going to win a world title. And I think Vergil Ennis is doing a great job. I think he's doing a great job with Andy Cruz. But again, I see all the criticisms. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I personally think, and I've been around a lot of coaches. I've been around some of the best coaches in the world. From Vergil Ennis to Miguel Leo to recently Virgil Hunter to Sugar Hill Stewart to Stacey McKinley to there's a lot of guys. A lot of top coaches I've been around all these years, and I know a top trainer when I see one, and he's definitely a top trainer. So respect your opinion, but I think he's a great coach. What are your thoughts on Boots' punching power? Norman Sr. has stated that Boots' power is overrated. I disagree with that take. I think he's got very good power. Well, Boots, it's not so much about his power. It's more so like his instincts, his finishing abilities is what impresses me. I think his power is good because he's got a lot of speed. And in boxing, your speed is your power, right? So that's one thing he has going for him. But he's got more so accumulation power. Like he'll get your attention if he catches you flush with one punch, but he is more of an accumulation puncher than he is a one punch guy. Norman has more of that thudding, like I'll cut your lights off power, like that Con Air, that FPL, the lights are out type power. Like that's what he has. Or Con Edison, right? Con Edison's the New York City electric company. Con Air is the ship for the hair dryers. But anyway, it's different types of power. So do I think his power is overrated? I won't say it's overrated, but I don't think I think Norman is a bigger puncher than him. That I do believe. I think Norman's a bigger puncher than Boots. But what impressed me about Boots is not his power. It's his finishing ability. It's his creativity when he's punching in the pocket. Those are things that impress me about Boots more so than the power. The power just comes as a byproduct of that. But I think he's got good power. Do I think that Bozy is great in the corner during the fight? You know, I don't think he's the best in the corner. Like from what I've heard him give instructions, I don't think his corner advice from the fights I remember, I don't think it's the best. I think Bozy, what I think Bozy from what I've seen of Bozy, like, you know, throughout the years, I think Bozy's great in the gym. I think he does a great job of imprinting his philosophies on whatever fighter he's coaching. So whether it's Andy Cruz, Boots, or Fulton, he has certain character traits that he wants to put in on a fighter, and he does a very great job of that. As far as adjustments, though, I think you know, from what I've seen with not just Boots but other guys, I think he needs to have his fighters dominate the fight, because I haven't been the biggest fan of his instructions as a coach, but I think he's a great guy as far as because I think trainers have different things they're great at. Some trainers are good at really delivering their philosophies in the gym, but they may not be as good in the corner on fight night. Some guys are really good in the corner on fight night, but they have a hard time really getting their ideas across in the gym. And then the real special coaches are great at everything, which is far and few between. You know, so I think Bozy, like Lil Boosie. No, Bozy. I think Bozy Ennis is a guy that's great at delivering his philosophies and what he wants out of a fighter in the gym. You know when you get a Bozy Ennis trained fighter, you're gonna get fighters that punch through the target. You're gonna get fighters that come to really fight you in the pocket. You're gonna get fighters that are versatile and fight with a creative offensive mind. Those are the pillars of what a Bozy Ennis trained fighter is, in my opinion. In the corner, I feel like Bozy Ennis believes so much in his ideas and his philosophies in boxing that he kind of comes from the standpoint, like a lot of trainers, they come from the standpoint of and the perspective of, okay, we was in the gym for 8 weeks working on this stuff. I don't gotta tell you anything else because I told you for the last 8 weeks what we gotta do. So go ahead and do it, right? And see, it becomes difficult for the fighters because a lot of fighters don't have the boxing brain or the composure on fight night to just do what they were told in the gym. You know, they need to have those things explained to them in a way that can resonate with them in that moment and apply it to who they have in front of them, right? So, you know, different trainers have different styles, but Bozy Ennis, to me, because of him being a world-class guy in the gym, that's the work that he does in the gym, getting his ideas across to the fighters. That makes him a great trainer. Not so much the corner work, but more so just the fact that he has his pillars and his philosophies, and he drills them into his fighters. You know, a Bozy Ennis training fighter when you see one. You know, so that's what I'll say. You don't like the hype Boots gets, so you want to downplay it. No, that's not true. I'm happy that Boots is getting hyped. That's where y'all got it messed up. Y'all think that because Boots is getting hyped that I'm some sort of like hater and I want to downplay him, and that's not true at all. I'm the same person that said that I think Boots is one of the 5 greatest fighters I've ever seen fight live, and I've seen a lot of the best fighters in boxing fight live. You can name most of the elite fighters in boxing. I've been ringside and I've seen them in the flesh. So if I put you up there with a guy like Crawford, Roman Gonzalez, Beterbiev, Inoue, these kind of guys, that means I think highly of you. And I'm happy that the East Coast and Philadelphia has a guy they can get behind. So I'm not downplaying him because he's getting hyped. I'm downplaying that Lima is not on his level, and we shouldn't be, going this damn crazy. Like, it was great. It's amazing that he got him out in 1 round. He gave the people what they wanted to see. All the paying customers are getting sent home happy. Let's all rejoice and be happy about that. But let's not say that because he knocked out Lima that he's gonna do the same to Vergil Ortiz. Nah, that's all I'm saying. I'm happy he's getting hyped. Jaron Ennis, I think, has a great chance if he gets the fights and wins. I think he's got a great chance to be the face of boxing going forward in America. And I think he's a great role model for the young fighters. He's not like, he's a disciplined fighter. He lives the life. He lives in the gym. He's not out here, at least from what we know, he's not out here, doing drugs and getting into like things that aren't good as far as like, fucking around with all these women and things like that. Like, no, he lives that life as a fighter. And I think he's a great role model for a lot of young kids. So I hold him to a high standard because I think really highly of him. And, you know, a lot of people, they see me get real passionate and fired up about what I'm talking about here on YouTube. But if you ever just talk to me in real life, you would understand. But anyway, but Boots did set up a blind shot lane. That's the one that can hurt you and that he'll finish you with. He did. No, he did. Again, he's a very creative offensive fighter. And I give him that. But I think I just want to see him in there with a top guy, man. Don't crucify me, man. I want to see him in there with a top guy. Boots has a granite chin too. He ate that hook from Lima easy. Do you believe Vergil or Bakram could hurt Ennis? I think Bakram could definitely hurt Ennis. I think Bakram could hurt anybody at 154. I think he could hurt. I think he could hurt Xander. I think he could hurt Boots. I think he could hurt Vergil. And you know what? A lot of these guys, promoters and handlers, think the same thing. And that's one of the main reasons. A lot of people say, oh, well, no, look, he's with Kathy Duva. There's not a lot of money in fighting him. Blah, 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 blah. But let's be real. When you really get to the core of it, people know. In boxing, people know who's a dangerous fight and who's not. And Bakram is a dangerous fight. So, yes, to answer your question, yes, I do. What do I think about Bozy and Catterall? I'm really excited about Bozy and Catterall, if I'm being honest with you. Jack Catterall is a really good fighter. I like Jack Catterall. I know a lot of people don't like Jack Catterall. They say he's boring, right? And fair enough, he's had some boring ass fights in the past. I won't argue that one. But you know, Jack Catterall has shown in his career at times that he can be like the things I was talking about a Bozy Ennis fighter being a fighter that can fight you in the pocket and comes to really, impose his will on a fight. Catterall has shown that in his career. He showed it with Josh Taylor in the first fight. He showed it with Regis Prograis. Like, Jack Catterall can fight, guys, and I think he's gonna grow a lot from being a Bozy. And I do think it's gonna go well. I do think it's gonna go well. And if anything, right, Jack Catterall is a good fighter. But if we're talking about in terms of talent and skill level, he's not Jaron Ennis. And I don't even think he's as skillful as Andy Cruz. So actually, I think the Jack Catterall, how Bozy does with Jack Catterall as a trainer is going to really show what level of trainer he is, right? Because, Jack Catterall is at a good level, but he's not, he's not a former gold medalist, and he's not an other world athlete like Boots, and he's not, he's not Stephen Fulton to where he's done all these things in boxing. He's good, but he's not those guys. So I think if we see Jack Catterall, go and beat someone with a name or really perform at a high level against one of the top guys and give them all they can handle, that's going to be a testament to Bozy Ennis. But again, it's difficult being it's difficult when you judge a trainer, right? Because a lot of times, and I've seen this with my own eyes, being around fighters and being in the gyms and things like this, it's like you can't always judge it's hard. You have to look at everything in context, right? Because I'll give you an example of a trainer who I believe is a good trainer, a very good trainer actually, and I got a chance to see what he was like in the gym for the last month and a half when I was in the Bay Area, Vergil Hunter. But I used to think that Vergil Hunter wasn't a very good coach because he would do a very great job with Andre Ward, but a lot of the guys that he would train that were not Andre Ward would get their ass whooped, right? But then I went back and I kind of reviewed Vergil Hunter's like CVs, like the guys he trained and when he trained them, right? So look at a guy like Amir Khan, right? Amir Khan was already an established fighter, been knocked out a couple of times, but he wasn't really living that life outside the gym as a fighter when he needed to. So Vergil couldn't get the best out of him, but he got something out of him, right? You look at someone like Joshua Buatsi, who lost recently to Callum Smith. Buatsi's a good fighter, but and I still think Buatsi is going to do some good things in boxing, right? But then you look at okay, so he's had a setback with Amir Khan. He got Barrios to a good level, right? We know Barrios ain't no great fighter. Look what he's done with Suleiman Sissoko, who's not an otherworldly talent, but a good solid fighter. He's got him right there on the doorstep of a world title. So a lot of times you got to look at these coaches and the fighters they take on, not just for how the result of the fight, but when they get them and how they perform in certain fights. So anyway, I'm rambling. All I'm saying is I think we'll learn a lot about Bozy Ennis as a trainer, even more with how Jack Catterall does. Anyway. Let me go to the chat. Lima was a bottom of the barrel 154. No more tune-ups. I feel Burrow thrashes Boots. Boots is no hybrid Roy Jones Crawford mix. I don't think I like Abbas Burrow. I think he's a good. I think he's actually a very good fighter. I like Abbas Burrow, but I think Boots beat Abbas Burrow. But that'd be a good fight because Burrow has a high work rate. You know, we haven't really seen I think we'll learn a lot. I think it'll be a good fight if they do fight. You know, I don't want to see it. I want to see him fight Vergil because Burrow has a high level work rate and he's gonna stay right on top of you. So Boots is gonna have to punch through the target and get this guy up off of him. You understand? Yeah, a lot of guys are fed up. That's what I'm saying. Mario Barrios, right? Like Vergil Hunter got Mario Barrios to a world title, or at least a world title position. I don't think he's winning another world title after this. Anyway, shout out to everybody here. It's your boy BT, the Untouchable True School Sports Empire. It is everybody's favorite program, True School After Dark. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Definitely go ahead and subscribe and super chat, all that good stuff. And yeah, man, we're getting back to it. We're going live every day around this time. So hope you guys are having a good day, good night. And yeah, you know, shout out to everyone. But look, my next talking point is this, guys. I want to camp out here for a second because really and truthfully, the Ennis versus Ortiz fight, it's not just about, you know, them two creating a legacy for themselves and, you know, giving us a big fight. But really and truthfully, this is something that American boxing desperately needs right now. You know, we're at a time where Top Rank doesn't have a network deal. Everything is getting outsourced to Saudi Arabia. And we're going to finally see, you know, can Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya do a fight for boxing? This is not a fight that needs to be in Saudi Arabia. I want to get this very, very clear. The great fight fans of Philadelphia, the great fight fans of Dallas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area, these fans that I know for a fact are going to get behind Jaron Ennis, are going to get behind Vergil Ortiz. They're going to come out. They're going to buy tickets. They're going to make this fight be big. It's going to be one of those like era-defining type fights for boxing in this country. This fight needs to be in the States. I don't give a fuck if it's in Madison Square Garden. I don't care if it's in Vegas, but it needs to be in America. And we're going to see just how serious Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya are because, you know, Dana White's in the fold now. We're in a new climate now. It's not 2023 anymore where Turkey's just, you know, they're under the Turkey umbrella. No, you got to eat what you kill now, and you got to make some fights happen that mean something. So let's go to screen share, guys, because I can't emphasize enough how important this fight is for boxing in this country. Now, shout out to my main man, Alan Dawson. Shout out to Alan Dawson, you know, one of the boxing scribes out there in the world. You know, my British brethren. He said, he wrote a really good article. Go check it out on yahoo.com. He said, look, Jaron Ennis versus Vergil Ortiz could define a division, but only if Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya play it right. The biggest obstacle isn't booking the bout, but keeping it in the right market. It reminds me of what De La Hoya once told me about Riyadh. So look, listen, man. Las Vegas, Mandalay Bay. Let's not overcomplicate this. Let's make this the Dallas Cowboys versus Philadelphia Eagles, but for boxing. That's what we need to make this. Truth be told, because these guys have been, you know, built up enough. We know they're both really, really good. And like, look, you got Eddie Hearn out here shooting his mouth off, talking about that Jaron Ennis is the best pound for pound fighter that he's ever worked with. We're talking about Eddie Hearn here, guys. This is a guy that done worked with, you know, Canelo Alvarez and you know, even a guy like Anthony Joshua. But he, you know, he's been with some really good fighters over the years. So this is not a small claim, you know. And if he is that, he needs to be in the kind of fights that validate that claim. When you make claims, you have to do things to validate those claims. If I come here and I say, you know what, guys, I am the best boxing channel on YouTube, and that it's all fine and good for me to believe those things, but I gotta do things in the real world with my own work ethic to show you guys that I am those things, right? And over the years, you know, I think I've done some things to state my claim to that, but you know, I got more work to do. But like, you gotta constantly prove yourself. Life is about proving yourself, right? So that's the challenge here. I really do think the challenge here is going to be, will Eddie Hearn, Oscar De La Hoya put their money where their mouth is? You guys done spent all this time, all these years building Jaron Ennis, building Vergil Ortiz, investing your hard-earned money because you believe in the investment. And now it's time to see if you believe you'll get your ROI, if you'll get your return on your investment and make this damn fight happen and make it in a place where it's going to mean something. Because this fight, I don't give a damn how many millions that the Saudi Arabian government and Mohammed bin Salman and Turkey Al Sheikh and the custodian of the two holy mosques and all those people and all that blase that they talk about. I don't give a damn how much money they bankroll you guys. All right. If you believe in your investment and you want to get a real return on your investment, and I'm not just talking about in terms of money, because people always think that in life and in boxing, a return on investment equals money. A return on investment doesn't always equal money. In boxing, a return on investment could be something as simple as, becoming more irrelevant in the sports landscape in America, becoming more popular. They say legacy doesn't pay bills. That's bullshit. Legacy does pay bills. All the great fighters yesteryear, your George Foreman's, your Evander Holyfield's, your Muhammad Ali's, your Salvador Sanchez's, your Joe Kawasaki's, all the great fighters of yesteryear that came before us. We talk about them to this day, decades and decades and decades after they fought, because they were in fights that meant something, that we're talking about 20, 30, 40 years down the line. And guess what? A lot of those guys that I named are still doing speaking appearances because people want to talk to them about, life and their career, because they find it so interesting that they fought on this high-ass level of this barbaric-ass sport that we're in boxing, and they performed at an insanely high level, and they want to know how they did it, and they want to figure out what's the mindset. How did Evander Holyfield take that uppercut from Riddick Bowe and continue to go on? And what was it, the ninth or 10th round of the first fight? How do these warriors perform at such a high level under such tough circumstances, right? And these guys get speaking appearances, they get endorsements like years after they're done fighting. So guess what, guys? Legacy does pay bills. And you got Oscar De La Hoya, who was on Twitter shooting his mouth off, talking about, I'll put it for you guys right here. He said, not to be an ass, but can someone please educate the educator? Who is Boots fighting tonight? And he's talking about Usima Lima, which, I'm not going to even disagree with him. I didn't like the Lima fight. But really and truthfully, okay, you had your fun. We know it was a mismatch of epic proportions. Okay, now, please, respectfully speaking, Oscar, please be quiet and make the damn fight. Get it done. I don't want and don't play no games. Don't do this Vander shit. Boots and a champion. You not a champion. They both need each other. Vergil doesn't need Boots more than Boots needs Vergil. Nobody needs, they both need each other. They need each other. American boxing needs them to get this done. So the responsibility is in Oscar's hand and Eddie Hearn's hand. And you know what? I'm going to put the responsibility more on Oscar's hands. You want to know why? Because Eddie Hearn ain't American. Eddie Hearn's a Brit, all right? But Oscar De La Hoya, he's an American. He won a gold medal for our glorious country back in the 1992 Olympics. And, he loves boxing. He's done it all in boxing. So he has a chance here to really elevate himself as a promoter, right? And make a great fight happen. So I don't want to hear about Vergil Ortiz fighting Xander anymore. I don't want to hear about Vergil Ortiz even fighting Bakram. Make this fight happen. It's the biggest fight that can be made in the division. A lot of times, guys, we've seen it in boxing. Even in recent years. Look at Tank versus Ryan Garcia. That was one of the biggest fights in boxing over the last 5 years. They didn't have a title, right? So sometimes you do get scenarios where the biggest fights in the sport or in a division do involve two guys that don't have a title. And this is one of those unique, rare scenarios. And it is very, very important that all parties involved do the right thing and get this fight done. What do you guys think? Am I out of pocket here? Am I saying anything that's off key, off base here? Let me see. Hey, BT, how do other 154 prospects like Tucker, Mielnicki, Tellez, and Conwell shape up in the mix? Shout out to Chris V with the question. As far as those guys, I mean, Mielnicki is not, in my opinion, I don't think he's very good. That's why he went over to TKO boxing, because he knows he's not, and I don't even think he's a 54-pounder anymore. I think he's more of a 60-pounder these days. And I'm not gonna name no names, but I know some fighters, more than one. I know some fighters that he's turned down personally. So I never really thought a lot about Mielnicki, but he's a nice guy. If I'm being honest. Tellez, I would say top 10 guy. No, not top 10. He's not as bad as Lima, but he's not much higher up than Lima. I would say Tellez is like half a level above a guy like Lima, but he's not. That'd be a good fight. That'd actually be a good fight, Lima versus Tellez. Because I feel like they're closer in level than like Lima was to Boots. Conwell, I think he's better than he showed against Jorge Perez. I still think Conwell is a top 10 guy. And then as far as Jahai Tucker, he's the guy that I feel like is creeping up to being a top 15 guy. He's had a very good win against Lorenzo Truck Simpson. I think the next step for Tucker is to go in there and fight a top 15 guy and really like solidify his position. So he's right there. But as far as Milnecki and Tellez, I'm good off that. I'm good off those guys. For the longest, I thought it was Vergil doing a Boots fight, but listening to Eddie so much in Carr versus Boots, he wants to make Boots an attraction. He doesn't care about being competitive right now. Well, you're not wrong, right? And Crawford has become, for however long his career is going to last, for however much longer his career will last, Crawford has made himself by beating Canelo and becoming one of the, less than two handfuls of guys in the history of our glorious sport to become a 5-division champion. He has made himself, for as long as he continues to box, the money guy in and around his divisions. You understand? Anybody who can fight Crawford, it's like now, I'm not going to say it's like Canelo, but like he's now one of those rare guys where now it's not just about legacy. Now you can make a lot of money fighting Crawford and get a lot of legacy. You could have your cake and eat it if you fight a guy like Terence Crawford. So I don't blame him for that. You got to understand, like, Eddie Hearn, apart from like maybe like Demetrius Andrade, which I know people will probably disagree with me, but apart from a guy like Demetrius Andrade, he hasn't really signed too many fighters that were, in terms of talent level, on the level of a guy like Jaron Ennis, right? You could make the argument Jaron Ennis might be the most talented fighter Eddie Hearn has ever signed. So he's not gonna, ship him over there to Saudi. And look, Boots is showing. You got to give credit where credit is due. A lot of these fighters in America that like they can't sell tickets. Like they can't sell tickets. Boots is showing he can sell tickets, that there is value in him. And Eddie Hearn is going to do all he can to make him an attraction. So there's a happy medium to all this, but I think Eddie Hearn is he's in a great position where Boots has now got a big knockout. People are talking about it again. His stock is back up. And he's got a fight with Vergil Ortiz, a true legacy pound-for-pound type of fight where now you can look at Jaron Ennis fighting in a fight with 10,000 plus, and depending on how they promote it, maybe even 15,000, but I'll say more like 10,000. So yeah, I agree with you. Boots Ennis has firmly established himself as one of boxing's most dangerous rising stars, and is dismantling of the feared Lima Dragon at 154 pounds has put the sport on notice. Canelo is next. And shout out to TBE Boxing. He's obviously trolling because Canelo Alvarez is not gonna fight him. He's still sparring, but he ain't gonna fight him. Hell no. Do you think fighters should fight more per year like back in the day or like now? I think it depends. I don't think every fighter is built to fight more per year. Like, certain fighters, let's just call it out for what it is. Certain fighters are injury prone, right? They get hand injuries. They need more time to heal. Look at a guy like Shakur Stevenson, right? He gets injured a lot, I think in a perfect world, the top champions would fight 3 times a year. But there's just so many layers to why fighters don't fight often. A lot of people think that it's just about, these guys just don't fight. But no, like, I know so many fighters that if you left it up to them, they would fight 4 times a year. But, sometimes promoters don't pay these guys when they're supposed to. Sometimes, fighters that the fans want to see them fight duck fights. So then the fighters themselves have to weigh out, okay, do I want to stay active and get criticized for cherry picking, or do I wait until I get one of these top fights? So I think in a perfect world, guys would fight more often. But it's not as easy as everyone thinks, But that's just my opinion. But I would like to see the top champions fight 3 times a year in a perfect world. But unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. We live in an imperfect world. Crawford is the money guy as Turkey is in boxing. The minute Turkey leaves, no one will pay Crawford. Well, it's okay because Crawford doesn't have a lot of boxing left in front of him anyway. At the most, you can probably presume and assume that Terence Crawford is probably going to have at the most, I would say 2 fights left. I'm gonna say 2 fights. I'm gonna say he probably fights Carlos Adames next, because Lara and Johnny Beck are gonna fight for 3 belts at 160, right? Then that only leaves Adames. If Crawford beats Adames, he now becomes a sixth division champion, and it opens up the possibility of Crawford having the chance to become a 4-time undisputed champion, and they can bring that big fight to Omaha, Nebraska. They can do it at the Memorial Stadium where the Nebraska Cornhuskers play, and just do it big. Really go out in style. Understand? So Crawford is not a guy. I made a joke. I said that Crawford should fight Usima Lima at the Memorial Stadium, right? But obviously that's not gonna happen. But Terrence Crawford, I think, is gonna try to fight the best guys available to him for as long as he's in boxing, because that's now that he's getting some money behind him, an investment, that's what he's been showing himself to do. So I gotta look at, I gotta take him for what he is, and what Terrence Crawford is a true champion of the highest order and one of the greatest fighters ever lived. Eddie offered Charlo millions for an Andre fight, but he's willing to walk away from knowing over $300K. It makes no sense at all how Eddie is winning boots if he feels he's the best. It makes sense to me. It makes sense to me because the boxing climate is a lot different now than when Eddie had Andre. When Eddie had, you gotta understand, when Eddie had Andre, Blender Blavatnik was just passing Eddie Hearn millions and millions and millions to start the zone. Some good old sports washing, right? That was going on. But now, the market is different. Turkey's in the market now, and Eddie doesn't get a lot of premier top American talent like this. So he's being a lot more careful because I think he wants to make boots into an attraction. You guys tell me, name me one time Eddie Hearn had a fighter in their prime from the USA that he signed who actually had the ability to be a mega attraction like Boots. Like Boots, let's be real. Let's call it for what it is. Boots has shown in Philadelphia that there's legitimate value in him, that he could, like, honestly, and I'm going to speak from the managerial standpoint because you guys know that I'm really interested in that side of boxing. I have a boxing manager's mind. I'm probably going to become a boxing manager in 2026 myself. But I really think if moved properly, I think Jaron Ennis could fight at Citizens Bank Park, the home of the Philadelphia Phillies. I think he could have a fight in a baseball stadium. I really believe that. I think that highly of him in terms of not just as a fighter, but also commercially. And I think that's kind of the route Eddie's taking him, right? So it's different climate. But I also think that if you're trying to get Boots to become that mega attraction, you're not gonna do that forever by fighting the Usima Limas of the world. You're gonna have to put him in a legacy-defining fight against a guy like Vergil Ortiz that the public perceives as enough of a threat to definitely be interested and be vested and give him this credit if he wins. So that's my take on it. As the fight's getting closer, what are your predictions for Norman Haney? My prediction for Norman Haney has been the same since the fight got signed. I got Brian Norman Jr. 7 rounds or less. He's gonna beat the brakes off Devin Haney. But again, I give Devin Haney all the respect in the world for taking a fight like this because, as I've said many times, he's never in his entire career been in a fight like this. People will say Norman's never been in a fight like this, which is true. But Devin has also not been in a fight like this against a guy that's bigger than him, longer than him, stronger than him. So listen. The phrase gets overused in boxing, but I'll use it here because I think it's applicable to young Devin Haney. He's daring to be great, so I respect him for stepping up to the plate and making a great fight happen for boxing. And truth be told, there's no fight in boxing I'm looking more forward to than Devin Haney versus Brian Norman Jr. And the crazy thing about it is, all these years I've been covering Devin Haney, this is actually the first time in his entire career where I've actually been excited to watch him fight. Because I've always been kind of indifferent towards Devin. I don't hate the kid or anything like that. I think he's a good fighter, but all the fights he's had up to this point, I've never really been overly excited about, if I'm being honest with you. BT, I'm not trolling. Eddie Hearn said Boots can beat anyone between 154 and 168. Why not go straight for Canelo next? Boots is in his prime. Crawford is an old man. He's not gonna go like they can try to do the Canelo fight. I don't think Canelo will fight Jaron Ennis. They spar each other, so he knows what kind of talent Boots is. And I don't think the money will be enough. Canelo Alvarez is a whole different tax bracket to every other fighter in boxing. I don't think they'll offer him enough money for him to take that fight. As far as Crawford, I love the Crawford fight. I've always wanted to see Crawford versus Boots, and I would still love to see Crawford versus Boots. Why not? I feel like Crawford versus Boots right now would be one of the best things that could happen to the sport of boxing. Because if Crawford wins, that even puts him at another level, right? And that really, like, he's already a legend and an all-time great and all those great things. But that would just take him to, like, you beat Jaron Ennis, who's young in his prime. People will say, well, BT, he just beat Canelo. Like, what more do you want from him? Who is Boots? Who has Boots fought? Yeah, I get all that. But we know the talent Boots is. So if Crawford at, what is he, 38 years old, going on 39, whatever he is now, they could beat him at that advanced age. What does that say about just the, even more so about the kind of fighter he is? And if Boots beats Crawford, then fair play. We now have the baton being passed in a true passing of the torch, from one great black fighter to the next great black fighter. So why not? No, I get that part, but if you got the best guy, it shouldn't matter. We all know legacy wins are the best way to build a brand. Eddie is using a promo strategy that PBC ran in the ground. Listen, everybody has their plans, and boxing is a results-based business. So we'll see in 3 to 5 years' time if Eddie Hearn knew what he was doing or not. I truthfully think I'm more with you, QT. I feel like if you got a fighter who's the goods, you go ahead and you like, if he has enough experience and he's truly the goods, and you only know that, like, the only way you can really know this is if you're in the gym with them on a day-to-day basis. That's where you really learn about a fighter. That's why when I come on here and I talk about guys like Angelo Leo and Yugo Osaki, it's because I spend time around these guys. I've seen them in the gym. I know I can compare them to so many other fighters that I know in boxing, and so I know what I'm looking at when I speak about those guys. If you're Eddie Hearn and you've seen Boots in the gym, and you talk to Bozy and some of the other guys that are with the gym, you'll know what you have. So I'm with you, but everybody has their plans, and it is what it is. Damn, BT, Haney's gonna make you say exposed to yourself. LOL. I think Norman is gonna get jabbed at death and outpointed. I think you're severely wrong. I think Brian Norman Jr. has incredibly underrated timing, a very good jab that's improved over the last 3 fights, and he's incredibly stronger than Devin Haney. Like, Devin Haney needs to make sure as much as possible that he limits 50-50 exchanges, because he's not going to win those exchanges. He's going to get knocked the hell out. If he's not careful, he could wind up just like Jenzaki, or even worse. Honestly, I'm not saying that to troll. I think Brian Norman Jr. has some of the best timing in and around the division. From any fighter from 140 to 154, I think he's got some of the best timing in those weights. He makes adjustments very, very well. That's one thing. That's actually one thing about Brian Norman Jr. that I think he does better than Jaron Ennis. I think Brian Norman Jr., from what we've seen in both their careers, he makes better adjustments in fights than Jaron Ennis does. And that's why I would give him a great chance to beat and knock out Jaron Ennis if they ever fought. But I told y'all, I'm going to say it again, Brian Norman Jr., 7 rounds or less. And if Devin Haney wins, then fair play to him. But I got that young brother from Atlanta, Georgia. I agree. Norman is more dangerous than Ryan, and he's good at cutting off the ring. Yeah, everybody's talking about, like, who he hasn't fought and what he has done, and that's fine. Like, you that could play a factor. But I think stylistically, when you break it down, I just think Brian Norman Jr. is all wrong for Devin Haney, and that's why I give Haney credit for taking this fight, because that's where you really find out, like, these are the kind of fights where you find out how great a fighter is. Because I'm sure when Devin Haney goes to the gym, like, he may say all these things in the media about, Brian Norman hasn't fought anybody and he's not that, like, he may downplay him in the media, but deep down, when he gets home from a long day of training and he goes to rest and he has to think about the next day of training and why he's not, why he's not out partying and messing with women and eating, all this great food out in the world, when he's making those sacrifices fighters makes, when he goes to bed at night, he knows deep down he's in a real fight. And he knows that there's a lot of danger that comes with this fight when he goes and he watches them damn Brian Norman Jr. highlights. So you need a guy like Brian Norman Jr., to pull things out of you in training that maybe weren't there. I'll tell you guys this. I'm going to use Angelo Leo as an example. Like, when we went to camp for the Venado Lopez fight, Venado was a 4-1 favorite, and a lot of people thought Venado was going to knock out Angelo. And I've been around Angelo for some other fights in his career, and, he trains hard. He's one of those guys that trains his ass off all the time. But he needed to be in the ring with someone like that to really go to another level in training. And when I was out there with him in Santa Fe, New Mexico, I seen this shit. And I think that, that'll be the case on both sides for that fight. That'll be the case for Norman when he's in Atlanta training, and that'll be the case for Haney when he's in I think he's in Colorado right now training. So, it's a great fight. Everyone should be excited for that fight. Vergil will fight Spence in Dallas before he fights Boots. Watch, De La Hoya always moves his guys to where they have the advantage. I mean, hey, that's your responsibility as a promoter. You got to go ahead and do what you feel is best for the fighter, but you don't want to overmanage them. I feel like what happens in boxing a lot is promoters and managers, they overmanage these guys to where, they think they're being smart and they find out they're stupid. If you have a guy that you feel is the goods, at some point in time you take the training wheels off. Like, for me personally, like when it comes to like Angelo Leo, Yugo Osaki, these guys that I know personally and that, I do play a role in their careers, I'm not scared of nobody they got to fight. If Angelo fights Espinoza, I'm not worried. If Yugo Osaki fights Kyle Suki Takami, I'm not worried because I know what kind of fighters these guys are. But not everyone is like me. Not everyone thinks like me about boxing. So it is what it is. Shout out to Mooney's Gamble. He says, Makita Nakano is a win away from being the number one contender for the Leo's belt, which I think would be a great fight where Nakano's lack of defense will come back to bite him. I personally see Leo winning that fight 8-4. That's a great fight, man. Look, I'm very excited about that fight. I'm fired up about that fight because I've been seeing a lot of the Japanese boxing community talking about Nakano becoming a world champion. And I'm telling you right now, you come up to, if you do beat Rais Salim, which is not going to be a gimme fight, Rais Salim is the first real credible fighter Nakano has ever fought, if we're being honest. He's fought nothing but straight undersized Filipinos and Corkin Hall cans. We're just being blunt. He's not fought anybody as good as Rais. But that being said, I think he'll beat Rais, right? Rais does some things technically that I don't like because I was watching I went back and I rewatched Rais Salim's last fight against Rudy Garcia. And he does some things that I think are going to get him in trouble in the Nakano fight. So I think Nakano will get Rais Salim out of there in about, I'm going to say about 7 to 8 rounds. And I think he will become the IBF mandatory. And I'm excited. I'm excited for that potential fight because Nakano is a guy that sparred with Inoue, and Nakano is a Mr. Honda fighter. Like, he's a Tekken gym fighter. And so I'm looking forward to potentially Angelo knocking him the hell out and sending Inoue's sparring partner home with a knockout loss and taking his O. And then maybe once we send Inoue's sparring partner home with a knockout loss, God willing, Inoue beats Nakatani, we can send Inoue home in 2026 with a fat L. So I'm excited. I think it's a great fight for the division. I think Nakano is one of the hardest punching featherweights in the division. But we're going to learn how good he really is against Rais Salim. Because Rais Salim has a lot to fight for in his own right. Alim, this is a guy that was once one of the top contenders at 122. He lost to Sam Goodman. He's won 2 fights since then. He's had to work a regular job, being a security guard and things like that. So he has a lot to fight for. And for Alim, this is his world title fight. This is his Super Bowl. This is his Stanley Cup. So I think, hell yeah, man, that's going to be a great fight. But I think prediction-wise, I mean, I would say, like, logically speaking, I don't know what Nakano's chin is like or his durability is like. So I think I would agree with your assessment. 8-4 or 9-3 seems very realistic. I think Angelo has better feet, better boxing skills, and is a better body puncher than him. But I personally, if I think Angelo will be really up for that fight. I think he can stop him with a body shot. So I'll actually go with an Angelo Leo 10th round stoppage to the body, liver shot, something like that. I see Haney taking on the Attaway. Well, I got Norman. He's winning a tough fight. Yeah, well, that's the exciting part about it is Devin is definitely, going to be retaining more energy and strength than he ever has in his career. So, well, maybe it's possible. Maybe Devin Haney at 147 turns out to be a puncher. We'll see. But I don't think so. Norman ducks boots. Let's not forget that, people. Yeah, he turned the fight down. Or whatever. But, his management team had a plan. They stuck to their plan. The fight was bigger after the Sasaki knockout. I think they should have negotiated the fight. But, it is what it is. If the fight's meant to happen, it'll happen at 154. If Haney beats Norman, that man has supreme confidence because I can't see this as anything other than a vicious KO. Listen, Devin Haney, you may not think he's the fastest. You may not think he has the most power in the world. You may not think a lot of things about Devin Haney, but he ain't lacking no confidence. That's one thing we do know. Hand History Vault says, Yo, BT, how do you feel about the Florida Panthers' performance tonight? I'm disappointed. We lost to the Flyers 5-2. But I'm not really like angry about it because we played our backup goalie Daniil Tarasov, and then we had two defensemen out tonight. So we played Balinskis and what's the guy's name? Tobias Bjornfoot. So we're a little depleted right now. We're not gonna win them all. But yeah, I think we'll be all right. I think we'll be fine. Shout out to CJ Rich Boxing and BS. He says, "Yo, what's good, champ? What's up?" Johnny Beck versus Laura, December 6th unification. Do you think Crawford goes undisputed at 116? And where would that put him all time? I'm very excited for the Johnny Beck Laura fight. I really don't like Laura. I feel like Laura gets too much credit in boxing for being a professional loser. Like, he's a good fighter, but like if you go look at his resume, he's never really beat anybody. And I don't think he got robbed against Canelo. I think Canelo beat him fair and square. I think Johnny Beck should fold Laura. Laura's legs aren't what they used to be. He fights in the pocket a lot more. Yeah, this should be Johnny Beck's coming out party, I feel. But we'll see how it goes. They fight the fights for a reason. I do think Crawford will fight the winner of that fight. I think Crawford is going to go fight Carlos Adames for the WBC title. And he's going to try. Listen, I think Crawford is going to try to go out with the bang. Now, personally, I think he should just, retire on a high. But then again, you can't really ask me because I didn't think he should have fought Canelo. So listen, that man's earned the right to, if he feels like he can become the undisputed middleweight champion of the world, then fuck it. Go ahead and try that. I ain't knocking him for it. I always remember the Denzel Bentley fight. Yeah. Bentley took the fight to Johnny Beck. He was in the pocket. He was backing him up. And that fight going into a lot of people thought that was going to be a cherry pick in favor of Johnny Beck, and it proved to be one of the toughest fights of his career. And we learned that Bentley was really. My bad, guys. My phone was acting up. But yeah, like I was saying, Bentley, quiet as kept. Denzel Bentley's he is one of the best middleweights in the division. If we're just talking about the contenders and things like that, he gave Johnny Beck his toughest fight to date. So you got to give Bentley his just due and his respect in the sport. Hold on, what? My charger at? Give me 1 second, guys. My charger at? Whatever. I'll put the plug in right here. But Bentley's a good fighter. And shout out to all you guys who are still here rocking with me. Oh, what is it? 24 of you guys. The audience done shrunk on me a little bit, but it's all good. The ones that are still here are the real boxing fans. So let me take some time to answer y'all's question because I'm gonna be here for at least 2 hours. So make sure y'all run it up, smash that like button. Let me know where you're watching from. Super chat, all that good stuff. I got like 20 more minutes, and then I'm gonna get up on out of here because I got like content to make, and I'm playing a little catch up here, but we're gonna have a very strong finish to our 2026. Anyway, ESPN cut off BT. They don't want him to remind him of the world of that fight. He talking about Johnny Beck and Denzel Bentley too. Yeah, at some point I would like to see that fight because I really did enjoy their first fight. I do think Boots versus Norman would have massively sold tickets in America just because of his history and sparring. Yeah, I think don't get it twisted. Vergil versus Boots is gonna sell and it's a big fight, but I kind of just once Norman arrived on the scene and he became like a real rivalry. That's the fight I wanted to see. And to be honest with you, if you said BT, you can get Norman versus Boots, or you can get Boots versus Vergil. I'll pick Norman. I'll pick Norman versus Boots 100 times out of 100. Because hold on, it's a better build up. I'm actually more confident in Brian Norman Jr. than I am Vergil. If I'm being honest with you, I think Vergil has a chance, but I think Brian Norman Jr. got a better chance. BT, do you think the rumor is true? Fedor versus Demir got postponed because of low interest in sales. Now they're trying to put the fight under the Rolly Pac-Man card. I definitely believe that because it's not hard to figure out. It's not hard to work out. Sebastian Fedor, when he fought his last fight against Cordell Brooker, it was probably one of the least attended main events in the history of Las Vegas boxing. Go back and watch that fight. Look how sparse the attendance was for that fight. Keith Thurman is he's been good for boxing. I like him, but Thurman doesn't have any momentum. He doesn't have that kind of fan base to where, you know, he's gonna just on his own, you know, sell 10,000 in Las Vegas. So I think it was always a little bit irresponsible for PBC to make that fight. And now supposedly they're gonna put it on the undercard of this rumored Rolly Pac-Man card. I believe that. I 100% believe that. Yeah. You know, my corazón wants Keith Thurman to win. I love Keith Thurman, but you know, he's been due. Listen, I've always thought for years that Keith Thurman was due to get knocked out, and I think it's gonna happen in this fight, honestly. But I hope that he goes ahead and he wins. BT, it's been a while since I came on the stream. I'm really curious on your thoughts on Dickens Hayato. Is it too soon for Hayato? Well, good to see you. I am Mexico. I haven't been live for 2 weeks because I was out there in the Bay Area, in training camp with Yugo Osaki, and you know, I needed a break, man. Sometimes I need a break from YouTube, so I took a bit of a break to recharge. But now I'm back home and I'm back on the regular schedule. So good to be seen. Good to be here. As far as Dickens and Hayato, it's a good fight. You know, Dickens is a better fighter than a lot of people want to give credit for. Even me for a time. You know, I used to always just look at Jazza Dickens as that guy that got his jaw broken by Guillermo Rigondeaux. And he's shown himself to be a lot better than just a guy who got his jaw broke by Guillermo Rigondeaux. And even if you did get your jaw broken by Guillermo Rigondeaux, he's a great fighter, You understand? So there's no shame in that. It's a contact sport. You know, since then, you know, look what he's done. Look what Jazza Dickens has been able to do in boxing. He beat, you know, Liarazzo Diamante. He's beaten, you know, Zalfa Barrett, who a lot of people thought he would lose to. He did beat Albert Batir Gaziev, who was a highly touted top Russian amateur. People had pegged to be a world champion. So I wouldn't write him off against Hayato, but you know, for me, you know, and you guys know I'm really big on my Japanese boxing. I've always classed Hayato Tsutsumi as one of the best fighters coming out of Japan. And a lot of people say, BT, you say it about every Japanese fighter. You used to love all these Japanese fighters. That's not true. That's not true at all. There's Japanese fighters that I think are very overrated. Like I think Shokichi Iwata is overrated. I think Kaosuke Takami is overrated. There's a lot of Japanese fighters I'm not high on, but ever since I first learned who Hayato Tsutsumi was back in 2023, and I started covering him, I've always said Hayato Tsutsumi, in terms of skill set, in terms of ability, in terms of, you know, potential, I think he's one of the top 5 fighters coming out of Japan. I look at him like, even though he hasn't won a world title yet, I look at him on that class of a Kenshiro, of a Junto Nakatani, as that caliber of fighter. So I expect him to beat the brakes off Jazza Dickens because of how I view him. You understand? When I have a high opinion of a fighter, I'm going to, you know, have high expectations. And, you know, if they don't go ahead and deliver on that, then I'm going to really go off. Johnny Beck beats Lara by UD. I think he's going to stop him. I think Lara's legs aren't what they used to be. I think we're going to see a Lara that's fighting in the pocket a lot more than he did in the past. Guys, Lara has not been in a legitimate real fight since like 2019. If you go look, let me show you guys. Let me show you guys this, because people think that I'm just hating on Lara. I don't hate Arizona Lara at all. I like Lara. You know, I've covered 2 of his fights in Miami. Some of my earliest memories covering boxing were Arizona Lara fights in Miami. I just think he gets too much credit for, you know, not beating Canelo. But look at it. If you look at his CV, right? And this is not nitpicking. This is calling a spade a spade. If you understand the levels of boxing, you know what I'm saying is true. So look, if you just go down the list. So his last fight was against Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia hasn't been really invested in boxing for years. He's not a middleweight. You can't put too much stock in him beating Danny Garcia, even if Danny Garcia is a name. This is not 2013 anymore, right? And he's not a middleweight. So I don't put no stock in that win. Michael Zarafa, nice guy. I've had him on the channel. Not a world level fighter. he did what he needed to do there. Gary O'Sullivan, on his best night, fringe level guy. We can't really put a ton of stock into that. Thomas Lamana, definitely not a world level fighter. You guys have seen the duration of Lamana's career that he's not that kind of fighter that you just put up there as an elite guy, right? We've seen that when he's fought Charlo and Morel and other guys. A nice person, giving his life to boxing. I respect his contributions to the sport and his blood, sweat, and tears, but he's just not on that top level. Greg Vendetti, club show fighter. Ramon Alvarez, Canelo Alvarez family reject. Already had 7 losses. Is not a world level fighter. So you guys got to go back all the way to right here. Good old Brian Castano, and he didn't even beat. He didn't even beat Brian Castano. It was a draw, right? So we're talking about This is Lara's first real. I'm talking about real fight since pre-COVID. So I know I'm not out of pocket when I say this. For respect to Lara, he's a great operator, and I'm sure he'll be up for this fight like he hasn't been up for a fight in years. And maybe we do get the best version of him. But Johnny Beck should be folding Lara. Honestly, he should be folding Lara in this fight. Lara has, because as the old saying goes, iron sharpens iron, and that case is true for fighters. If you're a fighter and you just keep constantly cherry picking and fighting guys beneath your level, what winds up happening is your skills diminish, your blade gets a little bit dull, and I feel like that's what's happened with Lara, on top of him getting old. So yes, this should be Johnny Beck's coming out party, and he should go beat the brakes off Lara. That's what I feel, but we'll see. They fight the fights for a reason. If Lara wins, I finally think that Lara gets what he's been looking for in his entire career, which is a true legacy-defining win, which he doesn't have. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm very surprised Lara took this fight. For all the criticism I've given Lara over the years of being a guy holding that belt hostage, he's taking the hardest fight he possibly could in this division. So much respect to Lara. He says, man, it's been a long time since I've been on one of your live streams. Well, shout out to you, Hoops Convo. It's good to be seen. I'm glad you're here. I have been live in like 2 weeks, and I'm getting back into the flow of going live every single night. So tomorrow's live, we're going to really talk about that PBC card. We're going to really get into Johnny Beck Lara tomorrow. Because PBC, quiet as kept. PBC, for all the criticism we give PBC in the past and things like that, Top Rank ain't giving us no fights. They don't have a network. They ain't doing shit, Top Rank. But PBC, they're giving us Roach versus Pitbull. Fulton Foster's on the undercard. This fight's gonna be on the undercard. So shit. Thank you, Al Heyman. In 2025, we still say thank you, Al Heyman. And you know what? Al Heyman should be in the Hall of Fame, guys. There's been a lot of talk and discourse about Gennady Golovkin. Should he be in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot? And because a lot of the boxing writers in America have gotten their ballots, right? And I like Golovkin. But I don't think he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer in my opinion. And I think it's a crime to boxing that Al Heyman isn't already in the Hall of Fame, because the Hall of Fame is supposed to be not just something that celebrates the history of our sport, but you literally can't tell the story of boxing without, in the 21st century, without Al Heyman. And if you guys go look at the Customato Award, which is the Manager of the Year award for boxing, it's been getting handed out to the best manager in boxing since 1967 every single year. Al Heyman is the only person to win that award 5 times, and he's the only person to win that award 4 times in a row. For the work that Al Heyman has done with Floyd Mayweather alone, that's not even including getting PBC on network television, guiding Andy Ruiz Jr. to the damn world title against Joshua and these kind of things. Like, he's done a lot. You can't tell the story of boxing without Al Heyman. So I feel like he should be in the Hall of Fame, even more so than a guy like Golovkin. And I know it's a lot of people will say, BT, well, didn't you talk a lot of shit about PBC and Al Heyman in the past? Yes, but guess what? I talk shit about everybody in boxing because, not because I want to, but because, if you talk about all these fighters and promoters long enough, there's gonna come a point where you're gonna disagree with something or call out something, right? So just because I call out someone and maybe criticize a little bit doesn't mean that I don't think highly of them. I'm just highlighting what I believe about certain situations. You understand? Shout out to my guy AKH Boxing, he says, why is Tsutsumi ranked above Raymond Ford when he hasn't fought anybody and he was on the card above him? Ford got robbed against Ball. For real, they're trying to do him dirty. So that's a great question. Let me go on Box Rec. Let me go review Tsutsumi's record, and let's try to figure out why good old Hayato Tsutsumi is ranked above Raymond Ford. And mind you, I like Tsutsumi. He's one of my favorite fighters from Japan. But Tsutsumi, he's 8-0, 5 knockouts. So let me see. Who did he beat to get ranked this high? So from what I can see here, my friend, I can't tell you. I can't tell you what he's done. I know he won an OBPF title right here against Gio Santissimo in his third pro fight. That fast-tracked him getting ranked. I think what it has to do with, if I'm giving you an educated guess, he's been in the rankings a bit longer than him. He's had more fights in the division, and sometimes these sanctioning bodies will reward fighters who have fought often in a certain weight class. So I think he's probably just above Ford because he's been in the weight class a little longer, even though he hasn't really fought any big names. I mean, he did fight a faded version of Anselmo Moreno, the former world title challenger, former Alvarado and Moreno were good wins. Santissimo was a good win, but I can see why Ford, you'd want Ford in that position. But listen, Ford's going to get a shot. I think Ford versus Tsutsumi might actually become one of the fights to make in the division. And that's a hell of a fight. Tsutsumi, very skillful fighter. I know Ford beat Otabek Komatov when they fought. Tsutsumi beat Otabek Komatov in the amateurs. So I mean, there's a little storyline there. They kind of have a common opponent, even though Tsutsumi fought in the amateurs. They fought in the finals of the Asian Games, and Tsutsumi won that fight. So there's a little storyline. They both have Komatov. They both faced Komatov at some point in their boxing career. But as far as Ford getting robbed against Ball, I'm going to disagree with that. I don't think he got robbed in that fight. I thought it was a close fight that could have went either way. I do think Ford won that fight, but I don't think it was a robbery. I think Ford, he lost a lot of the early rounds, and he took about 4 rounds too long to adjust. And I think that cost him in the end. You got to understand, man, like when you fight Nick Ball, who's backed by Turki Al Sheikh, and he's the only British world champion, they're not going to give you nothing. You can't leave it close fighting Nick Ball. You understand? Like Angelo Leo might fight Nick Ball next year, and we already got it in our mind. We fight Nick Ball, we going to put him on the damn stretcher, get him out of here. So that's how you got to be against Nick Ball, because if not, Nick Ball is going to get the close decision. He's the only British world champion. He's got Turkey backing him. He's got Frank Warren backing him. The establishment is behind Nick Ball. They want to use him and cash him off that in-a-way payday. You understand? So, I don't think Ford was robbed, but, to each his own. What device do I use for streaming? I use my iPhone. GGG did beat Canelo in the first fight. I thought he beat Canelo in the first fight. I thought the second fight was a lot more debatable. GGG did 18 straight defenses of the middleweight title. GGG is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't know, man. I think there was guys that did more than him that aren't in the Hall of Fame. So I feel like, a guy like, Sambu Kalambe, Israel Vasquez. Like, Israel Vasquez had one of the best trilogies of all time. He beat multiple guys that were on the pound for pound list when he fought them, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. I feel like he should be in the Hall of Fame, and he's on the ballot. Marlon Stone is not in the Hall of Fame. I feel like Golovkin probably deserves it more than a guy like Marlon Stone because he had a better body of work. But I'm saying, like, a guy like Vasquez, a guy like Columbe, I feel like these guys have just as strong of a case as GGG. But I think Golovkin will get in on the first ballot because of the body of work, because of the knockout ratio, because of also what he meant to the business of boxing. You understand? Because a lot of things that one thing that I don't think enough boxing fans take into consideration when they talk about the Hall of Fame is it's the Hall of Fame, guys. It's not the Hall of Skills. It's the Hall of Fame. So part of the Boxing Hall of Fame is fame itself. If you're a fighter who was good for the business, if you were a ticket seller, if you helped carry the sport in a financial sense in a certain period of time, it does give you leverage when you're like getting voted in. Like, for example, a lot of people feel like I've seen people say that Arturo Gotti shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, which I don't agree with, but I'm saying they say Gotti shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. But guess what? Gotti was good for the business of boxing. Part of the reason why Gotti got in the Hall of Fame, apart from his accomplishments, is because he was in multiple Fight of the Years against Ivan Robinson, against Mickey Ward, and he was one of the true action fighters of his era. You understand? So
I feel like that's part of it. And Golovkin will get it on the first ballot. I just think, my opinion, I don't think he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I think he will. He says, Ryan is hating because he hasn't done shit in boxing. I mean, I don't know what he's entitled to his opinion. But it's, I don't agree with him. Golovkin is a Hall of Famer. I just don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And truth be told, like, I don't think it's many guys in boxing right now that are first ballot Hall of Famers. Like, to me, like when I look at Golovkin's career, his career to me is like, okay, he had a great run. He knocked out a bunch of people that he was supposed to knock out. His whole career revolved around Canelo Alvarez. He fought Canelo Alvarez in 2 big pay-per-view fights, and then after that, everything else after that was meaningless. His career did not matter after the second Canelo fight, and so it's like, if your career didn't matter after the second Canelo fight, should you be in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot? Like, I don't know. I feel like, Roman Gonzalez should be on a Hall of Fame first ballot. Now in the way should be in the first ballot Hall of Fame. Terrence Crawford, Canelo, Bivol, Beterbiev. Like, these are guys that I feel like are true first ballot Hall of Famers. But it's like few and far. I don't think many guys are first ballot Hall of Famers. You understand? Who do you think wins if Andre Ward fights Joe Calzaghe? That's a great question, man. I think it would have been, honestly, I think it would have been an ugly fight. I don't think it would have been no pretty fight because, Calzaghe, he slaps a lot, right? And then you got Ward who likes to crowd people and get real smug and physical on the inside. So I don't think it would have been an aesthetically pleasing fight for anybody. I would lean towards Ward, but that's it. GGG just left too many legacies fights on the table. He robbed the fans of great fights. That's what I'm saying. Like, okay, he knocked out a bunch of people, but you didn't fight Demetrius Andrade. You didn't fight and that fight was there. You didn't fight Demetrius Andrade. You didn't fight Charlo. You didn't fight Ward. You didn't. There was a lot of guys you didn't fight. Like, and he gets a pass. Like in my opinion, he gets a pass for that. I think people give him a pass. Yeah, sure, Cotto didn't fight him, and Martinez didn't fight him, but once he got to a certain level of notoriety and fame and stature, he didn't fight it. Like, there were guys that he did not fight. Like Kevin the Fighter saying, he left fights on the table. And see, some people may have a short memory. I don't have no short memory. So for me, he gets punished with me for that. Hall of Famer, but yes, but not first ballot. And as far as a lot of you guys bringing up Andre Ward, now look, Andre Ward got in the Hall of Fame because he's America. He was a gold. First of all, if you're an American gold medalist, you're already like 70% of the way there. If you win a gold medal for the USA, that puts you like 70% already on the way there, right? Then you're talking about being the lineal champion at 168. Beating those guys like Froch, who's also in the Hall of Fame. All right, my bad, guys. All right, I'm back. I'm back. Egis Klimas, Tom Loeffler, they were trying to get me beat. They were trying to suppress the truth from being spoken. So we're back. We're back, guys. I'm not finished. I have a lot more to say and a lot more the truth to spit. But yeah, man, I feel like Golovkin is a great fighter. I like Golovkin. I thoroughly enjoyed his career while he was fighting. But I just don't think he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. And now, a lot of you guys are going off about Andre Ward, and a lot of you guys are saying, "Well, Andre Ward is he got it on the first ballot. Should he be in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot?" No, I don't think he should have been on the. I don't think he should have been a first ballot Hall of Fame fighter either. But I know why he got in. I understand why he got in. So it is what it is. But guys, like it's so many guys. It's such a minuscule percentage of fighters that I think should be first ballot Hall of Famers because. I don't know. A lot of guys that do get it on the first ballot, I don't agree with it. Like, it's only a few guys I can say, like, what, I agree with them being first ballot Hall of Famers. And I think a lot of times people in boxing, they overvalue the wrong things. Like they really, really do. I don't think Golovkin was first ballot. I don't think Ward was first ballot. Who else was a first ballot Hall of Famer that I didn't agree with? There's guys that get in the Hall of Fame point blank period that I don't even think should be in the Hall of Fame, right? Like, now some guy, I want to mention this guy. I haven't fully studied his career, but I know enough to know that he wouldn't even be in the Hall, like that. He probably shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. That's Vinny Paz. I feel like Vinny Paz shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. I do gotta study his career more, but like, it's like you don't got Marlon Starlin in the Hall of Fame. You don't got Al Heyman in the Hall of Fame. Like, there's so many great people, not just fighters, but like people in boxing that have influenced the sport at the highest levels that can't get in the Hall of Fame. But then you got guys that are getting in for sentimental reasons. This ain't the fucking Hall of Feelings. This ain't the Hall of sentimental value. This is the Hall of Fame we're talking about here. So I don't know. It is what it is. You can't even compare Ward and GGG's resume. No, Ward has a better resume than GGG. I feel like his case for the Hall is stronger than Golovkin's, even though I was a bigger fan of Golovkin while they were both fighting. But it's just like it. I feel like your Floyd Mayweather's, first ballot Hall of Fame. Your Muhammad Ali's first ballot Hall of Fame. Bob Arum, first ballot Hall of Fame. Like, that's for the elect. Like, the first ballot Hall of Famers is for the Mount Rushmore guys of the era. You understand what I'm saying? And Golovkin was great, but you can't say that he was a Mount Rushmore guy of the era. And that might be controversial because people are going to say, well, his prime years, he couldn't get the big fights. But when he got the big fights, he didn't win it. He didn't beat Canelo. Like, he didn't perform like a Hall of Famer when he was in the fight. He didn't perform like a first ballot Hall of Famer when he needed to in the biggest fight of his career. Even if you thought he beat Canelo, which I did in the first fight, he didn't knock him out. He didn't like outright dominate. Like I thought he won clearly, but it wasn't the kind of performance where you're like, damn, that's a first ballot Hall of Famer. It was like, oh, he fought well. It was a fun fight. It was good. That's my opinion though. A lot of people feel like Golovkin is up there with Marvin Hagler. So it is what it is. And when Golovkin was in his prime, he was the most feared boxer of all time. I said it was 50 years before, but I think it was from that time. There was an African in America that wanted to fight a prime Golovkin, and even Andre Ward retired to avoid him. There was an African in America that wanted to fight a prime Golovkin. Who are you talking about? If Ward is in the Hall of Fame, let's let everyone. We might as well add Andre. He shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but he had the talent to get to the Hall of Fame. His career was terribly managed. It was bad decision after bad decision, and he got overpaid, and good for him. He got a Rolls Royce out of it, but he's not a Hall of Famer. Gennady Golovkin said, I'm going to go to super middleweight to fight Andre Ward right after Ward moved to super middleweight. He clearly was ducking the little Kazakhstani. I feel like the whole Golovkin Ward thing, I feel like it was a bunch of clout chasing. I feel like Ward and Golovkin both use each other. They both use each other to propel their careers. Golovkin used Ward, right? Because Ward was a name that was big in the American boxing establishment to prop him up, right? And Ward wasn't really serious about fighting Golovkin. Like, he never really pushed the envelope, at least from what we could see in the media. You know, behind the scenes, I don't know, but I'm saying he didn't really push the envelope to fight Golovkin in the media. And it seemed like he only called out Golovkin when Golovkin had a fight signed. So I feel like they both use each other. And that was a fight that could have been a super fight, but no, just it is what it is. They didn't fight. I'm still mind blown how the zone blocked the footage of Andre running up on GGG in the ring after the Derevyanchenko fight. Yeah, man, like he's not like that's what I'm saying. Like, for all the times Golovkin was ducked and was avoided, when he got some stature and some status in his career, he had like him and Andre not fighting. And you guys will say, well, Andre didn't fight no one, but look, that's a fight that could have happened. They were both in the zone. Andre had a fight signed with Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe pulled out that fight. It wasn't Andre's fault. Billy Joe pulled out that fight, and then Billy Joe pivoted later on in his career and fought Canelo. So it's like they're both on the zone. That was a fight that could have really did something for Golovkin's career, and he didn't fight him. He was fighting Kamil Schmerta and Steve Rose. Like, Golovkin had a chance to fight Andre, and he fought some cans. Like, for all the criticism I'm giving Boots this week, let us not forget Golovkin fought some in terms of the world creme de la creme level. Obviously, these guys are good, competent professional fighters. But I'm saying, in terms of Golovkin's ability, they were cans. Rose and Schmerta were cans, guys, and he could have fought Andre. Let's not forget that. And I agree with MEDBX's assessment. Golovkin is a Hall of Famer, but he's an Alonzo Mourning type of Hall of Famer. And speaking as somebody who grew up in South Florida and is also a fan of the Charlotte Hornets, you know, Alonzo Mourning played for both teams. So I know Alonzo. I know a lot about Alonzo Mourning's career. Good, fantastic player. One of the best shot blockers in NBA history. But he's not Shaq. You know, he's not Tim Duncan. He's not Kevin Garnett. He's that tier right below. You know, franchise type of a guy, but just not on that level, not on that tier. But still a great player in his own right. And that's how I feel like Golovkin is. I feel like, you know, Golovkin's not Carlos Monzon. He's not Marvin Hagler in terms of the great. He's not Bernard Hopkins, but he's great. You know. Floyd Mayweather doesn't even deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. His whole career is smoke and mirrors. And, oh, come on, guys. Come on, guys. Let's not do that. Floyd, like, let's not do that. I'm not. That's ridiculous. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're getting mad at Boots, right? We're getting mad at Boots for fighting Usima Lima. Man, Golovkin fought two Usima Limas. Kamil Schmerta and Steve Rose were Usima Lima caliber fighters, and he was over there getting that free government stimulus welfare money from the zone. Not fighting Demetrius Andre, not fighting the other top guys in the division, you know, because he was banking off of the fame that he got from, you know, the Canelo fights. Like, nah, man. Nah, GGG is more of a Patrick Ewing. Nah, I don't think he's Patrick Ewing. I think he's Alonzo. I think Alonzo Mourning was correct. Okay, BT, what if GGG fought Dimitri Pirog and won? What would you think now? I don't think he would have beat Dimitri Pirog. And what would I have thought? I think that would have been better than everything on his resume, because he didn't get any official wins against Canelo. And then what made it worse is he cashed out. He cashed out and sold. He pretty much sold the whole rivalry and fought Canelo at a weight he knew he couldn't beat him at later in his career. You understand? And yeah, Patrick Ewing was a great player, but I feel like New Yorkers made Ewing better than he really was. To be honest with you, Patrick Ewing and Alonzo Mourning are like here. They're like right here, neck and neck. They both came from Georgetown. They both didn't win shit in terms of, you know, the finals. Sure, Patrick Ewing got to the finals when he was older, right? I think, yeah, 99 when he got there. He was on that team, but they had similar careers. You know, they're not Shaq, they're not Garnett, they're not Duncan, they're not, you know, on that tier of centers. But, you know, I feel like Golovkin is that. He's Alonzo Mourning. He's Patrick. You know, you say Patrick Ewing. Do you think MJ will be the Uzbek version of G? No, hell no. Listen, I know I'm talking down a bit on GGG, or it may seem that way, but let's not get it twisted either. MJ is not that. For your information, all you talking mad shit on GG, but Prague fight was was made, it's not like GG duck fighters. Parag was the one who got hurt. Well, that's not the getting hurt is not ducking a fight. He literally got an injury where he couldn't box anymore. He didn't box after he beat the brakes off Daniel Jacobs. And you know what? Speaking of that, he performed significantly better against Daniel Jacobs than Golovkin did. If you want to compare, Ewing was better than Alonzo, maybe by a little bit, but I think they're pretty close in level. I feel like they're on the same tier. Like Ewing is not Olajuwon, Alonzo's not Olajuwon. They're not Duncan. They're not Garnett. They're not Shaq. They're not none of them guys. But they're Hall of Famers. Like they're not first ballot Hall of Famers, but they're on that next tier. Let's hear some NBA. Let's hear some NBA comparisons to boxers. Okay, let me think. Who are some NBA comparisons to boxers? So let me see. Who's the Steph Curry of boxing? Who do you guys think is the Steph Curry of boxing? Who is the Steph Curry of boxing? I don't know. I feel like Jaron Ennis is like, and I hear Sean Patel make this comparison. I feel like Jaron Ennis is like Vince Carter. I feel like, let me see. It's hard. It's hard to compare guys from other sports. Manny Pacquiao. Manny, who's Manny? Who would Manny Pacquiao be in the NBA? Somebody who's fast, like it feels weird saying like Manny Pacquiao. Maybe you could compare Manny Pacquiao to like a Steph Curry in a way, because Steph Curry changed the way that basketball was played to a degree with the 3-point shooting. Manny Pacquiao and Steph Curry defies all logic, right? With how he shoots the freaking basketball. And Manny Pacquiao defied logic with the way he scaled all these weight classes to the point where everybody says he's on steroids. So shit, maybe you could say Manny Pacquiao. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to compare basketball players. Why do you guys never bring up that Jacobs came in overweight? For the same reason you guys talk about Jacobs GG, you guys never said Jacobs was a cruiserweight. I mean, I talked about it at the time it happened when I was making videos about it. I don't think it matters because I don't think like Daniel Jacobs is good. He's a good fighter, but like, I mean, he came in overweight. Golovkin still fought him. If it was that big of an issue to Golovkin, he shouldn't have fought him. That's how I feel. Like, if a guy comes in overweight and isn't professional and comes in with an advantage, you have the discretion to not fight him, and punish him for not being professional. You understand? Golovkin's team, Tom Loeffler, and all parties involved made a conscious decision to not punish him for that and fought him anyway. And they still won, but it wasn't the outcome it probably could have been if they had decided to punish him for his lack of intentional professionalism. You understand? So, get mad at Tom Loeffler. Beating Lima makes Boots the man at 54. I think Boots just, he's being confident in himself. I don't think he's feeling himself. Joseph Parker is not getting enough for taking a fight with Woodley. No, hell no. Listen, speaking as a Tim Duncan fanboy, and if there's not many athletes I'll say I'm a fanboy. I'm a Tim Duncan fanboy. Errol Spence is not Tim Duncan. He's not great. He's not even close to being great enough to be compared to Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan, he's not consistent enough to be compared to Tim Duncan. He doesn't have the longevity to be compared to Tim Duncan. Nah, man. I gotta disagree with you on that one. Just because he's not flashy like other guys, I can't do it. He's not Tim Duncan. Like I'm not gonna try to do the NBA boxing comparisons because it's kind of hard. But one thing I'm not gonna hear is Errol Spence being put in the same breath as Tim Duncan. The only time you can put Errol Spence in the same breath as Tim Duncan, and I won't get mad about it, is if you say that Errol Spence lives in Texas and Tim Duncan lives in Texas. But that's about it. That's where the comparisons begin and end, is that they live in the same state. That's about that's where it begins and ends. Crawford is close. I feel like Terrence Crawford is closer to Duncan. You understand? Because to be like Duncan, you got to have longevity. Yeah, that's right. Talk to him, Chad. Michael Jordan is Angelo Leo. Yeah. Nah, Angelo's not Michael Jordan. No, but no. Let me see. Who's Michael Jordan? Who would Angelo be in basketball? Who would he be right now? Because like right now, if I'm being honest, Angelo's not a Hall of Famer, but he's definitely an All-Star. He's definitely on the All-Star team of boxing. Fuck, he two division champion. He got a big knockout of the year. He's at least on the damn All-Star team. See who's an aggressive player who's maybe Angelo could be like a De'Aaron Fox. No, not De'Aaron Fox. We won't do that to him. I don't know. I can't do those. Leo would be like Kyrie. Oh, okay, I'll take that. Kyrie Irving's a great player. He's a great player, so I'll take that. That's what I'm saying, though. Like it's not many. Forget boxing. It's not many athletes I can compare to Tim Duncan in any sport. Not just boxing. That's how great he is. That's how great Tim Duncan is. You understand? You spend 20 seasons with the same franchise, make the playoffs every year, win 50 games every year. Win 5 rings. Really should have won 6 rings, but Popovich took him out in that one game against Miami, and put Thiago Splitter out there, which allowed Ray Allen to get that 3-pointer to tie the series. So, hell no, bro. Tank or Boots? Who is the next face of boxing? I feel like, to be honest, if Boots can get the fights and win, I feel like the winner of Boots versus Vergil has a great chance to really step into that becoming the face of boxing, at least in America. Because I feel like Boots has a lot of commercial value, and you can see it in the numbers. Go look at his Instagram numbers. Go look at the crowds that he's drawing in Philly. Go look at like the way he gets people talking in the box community. He's got a big chance to step into that role. And I feel like, unlike Tank, Boots loves the sport of boxing. Boots is he curse too much. He's a good role model for the kids. I feel like he has a great chance. And the same things I can say about Boots, I can also say for Vergil. So I feel like that's another reason the fight has to happen, because it has to happen for the health, for the greater good of boxing in our glorious country. You understand? Terrence Crawford is Kobe Bryant. Oh man, I mean that's Terrence Crawford's favorite player, so I'm sure he'd like that. BT, Yamaguchi versus Kentaro Ujiri. Who you got? That's a good fight. Yamaguchi's a good fighter. They're both on the same level. I'll lean slightly towards Kentaro Ujiri. I think he's a slightly better boxer than Jinya Yamaguchi, right? He's fighting Jinya Yamaguchi, right? Jinya Yamaguchi is remember he fought a couple of times at a high level in Japan. I know he was slated to fight Suzumi Takayama earlier in the year. That fell through, and Takayama still hasn't fought since then. It's been almost a year, so I don't know what's going on with him in his career. But I'll go with Ujiri by decision. But that's a good fight. I honestly don't think Golden Boy will let Vergil take that fight. Golden Boy likes to protect its fighters. I hear you, but I think Golden Boy is also in a stage where they gotta create a star, and Ryan Garcia has been in the game long enough now for us to know that. Like, Oscar knows deep down, Ryan Garcia ain't gonna really be shit in boxing in terms of being what he could be. You understand? He's pissed away his career. That's why he's doing stuff on Ring Magazine now, because he's trying to take my job. He's trying to be a commentator now, right? So I feel like he's got to do this. He's got to take this fight. And I think the same thing goes for Boots, because people have had it up to here with Boots. You understand? They want him to fight someone with a damn pulse. Not no damn Stanionis, not no damn Lima, like an actual fighter with a pulse. What are my thoughts on Ball versus Figueroa? I hate that fight. I think, first of all, I think it's disgraceful that Mirko Quayle became the interim champion, the mandatory pretty much, and he's getting passed over for Brandon Figueroa, who, let's be real, Brandon Figueroa lost his last fight. And not just that. This is going to be one of the ugliest stylistic fights you're going to see in boxing. You got Brandon Figueroa with his ugly ass southpaw style versus the ugly ass bulldozing style Nick Ball. I think it's going to be a very, very ugly fight. So what I would really like to happen is that I would like Angel Leo to get like a towel defense in, and I'll like Ball and Angel to just unify, because I hate that fight, and we need these featherweights to start unifying. And I have a plan. I have a plan. We're gonna go ahead and get that fight. Like I'm gonna go make sure we get that fight, because and I got a plan. stay tuned for about the next month or so, and you'll hear more about it. But I don't like that fight at all. I think it's a terrible fight, and I think Mirko Quayle is getting screwed. He should be getting the fight. Who is the boxer with the most likable personality in your opinion? I really enjoyed the fighter who I met over the last year, who I really enjoyed speaking to the most, that I don't know like on a personal level, is Brian Norman Jr. I think he's been a breath of fresh air for the sport. I like him. I liked him a lot when I met him out there in Japan. Yeah, he was great. I think a lot of fighters are pretty cool. I mean, but when you ask me like the most likable, and if I'm not giving you like a biased answer, like I could tell you Angelo, I could tell you guys that I know in real life, like guys that I talk to on a regular basis, but that's being biased. I met Norman a couple times, when I was in Japan, and that was it. So I'll say Brian Norman. BT, what do you think about Landy versus Reyes for the IBF at 118? I think it's good that the IBF is keeping things moving along at 118. I don't really have any deep opinions on it, if I'm being honest. He says, "Okay, thanks, BT. Make sure you update us in a month." I will. I gotta run some things by the head honcho, Mr. Miguel Leo. But if Miguel Leo gives me the green light, let me just shut up. Let me shut up before I expose myself. Yeah, those NBA comparisons are hard. I don't know why you got. I found the Steph Curry comparison. Prime Lomachenko. Okay. Maybe, possibly. I ain't mad at it. I don't think Lomachenko is as great as Steph Curry. I feel like Steph Curry was greater in basketball. I feel like Naoya Inoue is more closer to Steph Curry. I feel like he defies logic more than a guy like Lomachenko. But that's just my opinion. I mean, we all have our opinions. See where we at? So we're at 2 minutes. So I'm gonna stay on for like 5 more minutes. We'll make it an even 2.5 hours for today. So guys, get your last minute questions in, get your last minute likes in, get your last minute super chats in, and definitely if you're new here and you fuck with True School Sports, if you like this content, if you like these kind of lives, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 90,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and then once we get to 90,000, we can focus on that glorious 100,000. Because I'm trying to get to 100,000 because I was promised by my boy Miguel Leo, Angelo's dad. I was promised a nice 100,000 subscriber celebration at Circus Sports at this place at Circus Sports. I wear my Angelo Leo jacket at Circus Sports at Circa Casino in Vegas. And it's gonna be great. We're gonna have a great time. We're gonna invite many beautiful women of many ethnic backgrounds, and we're gonna have great food, and maybe we'll invite some of the subscribers of True School Sports out to come party with us. But we gotta get there first. We can't party before we get there. So help me get to 100K. Should have been there already, but I talk too much. I've lost like 23 or 24,000 subscribers over the years. So I would have been at 100,000 a while, but I talk too much. I'm too real. So people say, you know what, BT, we don't like you. You hated on Canelo. You hated on Boots. You hated on my favorite fighter. So anyway, I'm very conflicted about Fulton versus Oshaki. It's hard for me to bet against sponsors. BT, what do you think? It's a great fight. I think Foster is a really good technical fighter. He's a longer fighter, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But man, it's hard for me to bet against. Unless Stephen Fulton's fighting like an Inoue, it's hard for me to bet against him. I think he's got more answers. What it really comes down to for me is, and the one question I have about Fulton at this stage of his career, now that he's made a lot of money in his career, and I do question how much he really is still dedicated to the sport. Is his weight, can he make 130 healthily? Because he keeps saying he got up out of featherweight because he said he couldn't make featherweight. Now he's already talking about leaving 130. He hasn't even had a fight there. So it's like, bro, why can't you make weight? Like, you got money. You can hire a nutritionist. You can hire a good world-class nutritionist and trust the process and make weight. So I don't know, man. I have my own questions about Stephen Fulton, but you know what? Unless he's fighting, now in a way in a rematch, or Angelo Leo in a rematch, I'm not picking against him. So I will go with Stephen Fulton by decision because I think he's got more answers to the question. I think Foster is a slightly better boxer from the outside. When you talk about mid-range, we talk about on the inside, I think Steve Fulton got him beat. And I don't think that Foster is so much better than Fulton from the outside that he can exploit it. I feel like it's very, very close in terms of ability. So I'll go with Fulton by decision. I do think he does become a 3-division champion. And I'll tell you this, I know the popular line of thought on this channel has been the Hall of Fame. If Fulton is to beat Oshaki Foster and become a 3-division champion, I think we can start to talk about Fulton, in that Hall of Fame talk a little more. I'm not saying that beating Foster would make him a Hall of Famer, but I'm saying we can now start to put his name in some of those conversations to where as one of the fighters in boxing where now he's on Hall of Fame watch. You beat if you beat a let's say a Foster, or if you can beat a top guy like Espinoza, or maybe you go undisputed at 30 on top of what you've already done, you might at the last stage of your career, you might actually make a strong case for being a Hall of Famer. But I think a win against Foster starts to put him in those conversations. You understand? So yeah, there's that. He said, a Diddy part. No, none of that, champ. We like women, champ. We like women and women only. Don't ever compare me to Diddy. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna have a great time. We'll be dressed to the nines. We're gonna have great food. We're gonna have all the people that I know in boxing. So your Angelos, your Johnnies, and all my friends in the fight game will be there. And all my female friends, not in the fight game and in the fight game, will be there. So shit, it'll be a lot of fun. If he wins, Cool Boy will be more of a Hall of Famer than Little G. Oh my God, y'all getting disrespectful. I don't know about that one. I think Stephen Fulton is underrated. I think I don't think he gets his true appreciation for the great fighter that he's been, because people are so quick to shit. Like, I'm so tired of it in the world. You know what? Hold on. You see that flag? These colors don't run, man. I'm a proud American, all right? And I know in this day and age, especially in my generation, it's not cool to say you love being from the USA. It's not cool to be proud of your country, because people look at all the problems that America has done in the world, and the negative things in this country. There's a fuck ton of positives about this damn country. And I feel like it translates to boxing. People always say, oh, these American fighters don't fight anybody. But then when I see American fighters like Brian Norman Jr., like Angelo Leo, and like Stephen Fulton stepping up to the plate, making big fights happen, daring to be great, people aren't as quick to give praise as they are criticism. You understand? So it's like he's been one of the fighters from this country that has taken on any and all comers. From your Inoues to your Angelos to your Figueroas to now Foster. He's one of those guys that's dropped his damn nuts time and time again. So I'm rooting for him. As long as he's not fighting Angelo Leo, I'm rooting for him the rest of his career. You understand? Yeah, man, it's been a rough week for me personally as far as fighters I know. Three of my friends lost this weekend. Lorenzo was one of them. Lorenzo, he fought Jarday Anderson from Iowa, who was, I think, like 9-1, and he got clipped bad. And he got knocked out in 2 rounds. Now, I haven't watched the fight, but I heard that he actually dropped that guy in the first round, and he got very cocky and started talking a bunch of shit, because Lorenzo likes to talk a lot of shit. And he got clipped in the second round. So it was a back and forth fight. He got done dirty in that second round, and look, exposed. I hate to say it, but he got exposed, and he has to go back to the drawing board. But the beautiful thing about Lorenzo's career and Lorenzo Medina is that he's still, like, sometimes I've known the kid for so long that I forget how young he is. He's 20 years old. Lorenzo was 20 years old, and I know him I know a lot of things he's been through outside the ring. And so, look, the great thing about it is I get to see how serious Lorenzo Medina is about boxing. And I don't think it's a death sentence for him, but he's definitely got to, live that life even more, because now everyone's going to look at him like food because he got knocked out like this. So, he's still 20 years old. There's still time to turn his career around. He lost. My boy Luis Hernandez, he lost, in Mexico. That sucked because I'm a big fan of his. And, again, he's like 22. He's got time. Eric Tudor lost 2 over the weekend. He lost. Apparently he got screwed. They deducted him points like 3 times with no warnings. And even people that I know that aren't biased, even they said, he got screwed in Mexico. So I gotta watch all those fights. But yeah, it's been a rough week, and it's never cool when you see your own friends lose in boxing, but it's part and parcel of the game. That's why every fight, you got to take every fight serious because you never know. There could be a dude from Iowa that can knock your lights out. And that's what happens. So, yeah, it's a small thing to a giant. You know, we can all get exposed, but getting exposed. Listen, Diamond Dallas Page said in wrestling, he said losing ain't a bad thing. It's a good thing, but it all depends on how you respond to it. You understand? So that's how I take it. It's heavyweight boxing. Shit happens heavyweight boxing more than any other division in boxing. What's Kevin Sajo like? He's like a more orthodox version of Christian and Billy. He's cut from that kind of cloth. I think the fight him Pacheco will be very, very good. I do expect Diego to win. I think Diego Pacheco, and I thought Diego Pacheco since 2018 was Eddie Hearn's best young American fighter that he signed straight from the amateurs. I've always thought that Pacheco was better than Raymond. I've always classed Pacheco higher than Raymond Ford, Ultra Jones III, Nikita Abibi, Mark Castro, all them guys. I always looked at him as Matchroom Boxing USA's #1 best guy. And so far, they've done a very well managing his career. So I think he'll beat Sajo on points. What did you think of Daigo Higa when he was 15-0, 15 KOs at the time? I thought Daigo Higa was a very exciting fighter, but even at that time, I didn't look at him as like Kenshiro or Inoue or those kind of guys. But he was a very good fighter. And yeah, but he was, his career is done now. I want to see Deontay Wilder fight again. You probably are. He was saying he has something signed, and I'm thinking maybe he fights Andy Ruiz Jr. next. That's a big possibility. So we shall see. Boxing ain't going to be able to build up any new stars. Crawford is cashing out. I disagree with that. I feel like boxing has this way about it where even when you think that no stars are going to emerge, stars emerge because you gotta understand there's a lot of great talented fighters in the sport. And someone always emerges. So, I personally, if we're talking about young American fighters, I think if Brian Norman Jr. breaks up Devin like I think he's going to, I think he's going to be a star. And unlike Crawford, unlike Devin, unlike Shakur, unlike a lot of these guys from the States, unlike even Vergil Ortiz or a lot of guys, Brian Norman Jr. has a personality. Like he has one of the best personalities in boxing. He's got charisma. You understand? What realistic super fight can Bam Rodriguez get? That's a great question. We know they aren't. We know that he's not fighting Junto. I told you guys that many times. I think him against if Kenshiro beats Ubaldo Garcia, I think Kenshiro versus Bam is a super fight. Kenshiro was on the pound. He was on the pound list earlier this year. He's one of the best fighters of his era. I feel like, even though people may disagree with me, I feel like that's a super fight. I feel like that's a fight that should be explored. But other than that, I mean, there's not a whole lot. If we're talking about in the near future, there's not a whole lot. Now, I can tell you guys who I think is going to be a super fight in the future. If you want to know, I think in let me see. I'm going to say in 4 to 5 years time, I think a fight that could emerge for Bam as a super fight is if he fights my guy, Yugo Osaki from Japan, but Yugo's in the light flyweight division. He hasn't even won a world title yet, but I think he's going to win a world title in 2026. And I'm telling y'all, we're going to come for Bam. I hope Bam keeps his own until we get to 118 because we're going to knock him off. I can't wait. That's what I'm looking forward to in the future. I'm looking forward to knocking off Inoue and Bam. Those are the two guys, Inoue and Bam. But honestly, I don't know. I really don't know. If we're talking about in the near future, somebody's going to have to emerge. There's good fights out there. I think Steas, Usumi, and Bam be a good fight. I think Christian Medina, if he both be a good fight, but it's few and far between. I don't see a lot of big fights out there for Bam. Because Mr. Honda doesn't want to match up with his guys, and Mr. Honda got the whole division in the Cobra Clutch. He has Junto. He has a piece of Inoue in these guys. I don't think they really give a fuck about Kenshiro, so I feel like if Kenshiro wins, they'll let Kenshiro fight him. But we shall see, because Bam has the most influential man in Japanese boxing promoting him, but he's never fought a Japanese fighter, and that's not a coincidence. That's Mr. Honda's doing and how he moves and how he does things. And A lot of people hate when I bring that up. They're like, BT, you blame Mr. Honda for everything that doesn't happen in Japan. And yes, I do, because he has that much control. You guys, like, American boxing fans, like, you guys don't really, like, you understand, but you don't. Like, and I can tell you guys in so many words, but I've seen contracts. I've been privy to a lot of conversations amongst power players in Japanese boxing that people don't get to see. I know how powerful Mr. Honda is. And that's why when things don't happen and he's got two guys, when he's got a piece of two fighters, that's why I bring it up. I don't hate the guy. I only met him one time. I don't know him. I can't hate someone I don't know. Brian Norman Jr.'s resume does not look good. I mean, everybody keeps bringing it up, but, you know, he has enough experience. He's definitely close to his physical prime than a lot of guys that Devin Haney's accustomed to fighting. I thought that Giovanni Santillan was a very good win. Giovanni Santillan was being propped by Top Rank as the future of the welterweight division. I think Giovanni Santillan, even now, would if he still decided to compete in the welterweight division, which I'm kind of disappointed. I don't know if he could make the weight, but now he's campaigning at 54. I feel like in this welterweight division, Santillan could have been a world champion. Honestly, I think he would beat Lewis Crocker. I think he would beat Mario Barrios. I would favor him against a lot of welterweights. But, you know, he's not a big name, and people will say, well, who did he beat? You know, who did he beat? But, you know, that's what it is. Nah, man. I think his time has passed. He doesn't take the sport serious, and his reflexes are already diminishing at a young age. So I think, unfortunately, his time has passed. Hopefully I'm wrong. But, guys, look, on that note, I think that'll about do it because it's 1:40. I've said what I need to say about Boots and Vergil and just about everything else in boxing. So we'll be live again tomorrow, and we're gonna keep doing this over and over and over again. Hold on, one last thing. Hawker Mustang says Japanese boxers can't become a star in the United States, and I 1,000% disagree with that. And I'm gonna tell you why I disagree with it, because I've done the research. I know the numbers. A Japanese boxer could be a star in America, but you gotta have them fighting in the right markets. So when you look at a guy like Inoue, when you look at Inoue, right, he signed a Top Rank, but he's never fought in the part of America which has the most Asian Americans. Those places would be L.A., San Francisco, and or Seattle, right? But you know, they don't really do boxing in Seattle. So we'll say L.A. and the Bay Area, California. If you look at the numbers, 33%, or a little bit more than 33% of the American Japanese population is located in the Bay Area and San Francisco. Now, Inoue has never fought in the Bay Area or San Francisco. So I've always felt like if a promotional company put the money up and boxed a top elite upper echelon Japanese fighter in the LA and San Francisco markets, I feel like a Japanese fighter could be a star in America, because the numbers suggest that there is an untapped market that's there. But see, a lot of these promoters, they don't think big. They're not willing to invest anything. And I feel like if they did, you would really see a lot of success. But that's my opinion. But anyway, I digress. You guys take care. God bless. Like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Dang It. So until next time, take care, guys.